Well, 2 weeks ago, Chief, we saw the conference finals unfold. Four conferences duking it out to get their spot here today, and we saw four pretty intense matchups.
And honestly, the highlight for me was that West Final because it was the only one that went all three maps. Now, we won't be seeing Grand Canyon until the second semifinal, but what we're going to be seeing today is NC State versus Purdue. Now, in regular season, NC State, they would find themselves in the second seed of their conference, hailing in from the South, sitting in a 5-1 record during that 6 weeks of regular play. Their opponents, Purdue, that first seed from the Central Conference, they never lost during regular season, which means they've also never lost in postseason. They are hot and ready, and I'm excited to see what they're capable of bringing today.
Well, you also highlighted that GCU Northern Arizona matchup, and that one's going to be interesting to watch a bit later on. Eventually, we'll be passing that semifinal off to our good friends Caliber, Jacob, and CDAPS to take you through that one. But like you said, Chief, our first matchup and our focus right now is Purdue versus NC State. Now, both of these teams, they have been at the top of the collegiate siege ecosystem for quite some time. You ask anyone in the collegiate scene and they'll tell you, Purdue has been a top 3, top 5 team for as long as they can remember. Now, the same cannot be said for NC State, but their growth as of late, especially in these last few weeks, has been, well, honestly, rivaled by none. They have been grinding it out, they have been sweating it out, stratting it out, and really, they are looking pretty good, and I am eager to see what they can put down tonight.
Now, there are some new members to both these rosters. Now, we haven't yet shown out the overall rosters yet, all 5 players from each team, but I want to talk about 2 of them right now. Anarchy, everybody knows him. If you're playing in T3, T2, or T4, that name rings a bell. He's been on just about every winning roster under the sun, the most recent one being Wichita Wolves, and he is just a phenomenal player. He adds a lot of flexibility, a lot of experience, and, he's not a big overall flashy player, but he does exactly what he needs to do. In the conference finals, his team would be applying pressure from one side of the map, and all of a sudden, Anarchy comes from behind and just drops an amazing 4K. Everybody from NC State is just firing on all 5 cylinders. It's Taco, NC Jack, Predator or Pred, Anarchy as we're talking about, and Drew.
Well, Pred, as you highlighted, that's one player to keep your eye on throughout the day as well. Kind of that first entry player, only a sophomore at NC State, in fact. But honestly, that leadership mind of this team, a mechanical engineer, so it's no surprise to see Pred working out those problems, putting in the work in that sense. But what's very unique about NC State is their hive mind mentality. They haven't allocated one IGL or another. They're approaching every situation knowing that all 5 members on this team are coming in with quite a bit of experience. Anarchy, you highlighted his T3 experience as well, despite only being a freshman, and it's really good to see any team, but especially, a team that is looking to evolve and looking to improve, approach with such a strong mentality. All 5 of them, they understand that they all come in with their different pieces of knowledge, their different strengths, and they will all be calling strats and listening to each other on the fly as a result. I think that's a really mature thing to see from a collegiate team.
And what we see from collegiate rosters is the IGL tends to be the primary entry, the Ash, the R4C main. And if you don't believe me, look at our next semifinal. We're going to have IMAT in play. Big brain, big aim, the man does it all. And it's actually refreshing to see this collective style of IGLing, because when one person has to bear the entire weight of a team, again, IGL stands for in-game leader, which means you have to lead your roster, not just call those strategies. We've seen, players stumble and fall. If you're an entry IGL, sometimes you're not following up your drones enough, and as a result, you're not getting those opening kills, which means you start to get frustrated and a little bit tilted. And when you're that centralized voice, and you're not clicking heads, that means sometimes you take a step back and you're not making effective calls. Since I used IMAT before, in his, T3 escapades, he's fallen in that trap before, and that can be concerning. So we're going to have to see how this collective 5-man hive mind mentality is able to deliver NC State to a potential victory.
Well, we can shift over to talking a bit about Purdue here. Now, they don't have the same hive mind mentality. They do have one strict allocated IGL that is going to come in the form of Providence, main IGL with 1 year of T3 experience, and that's going to be your main support player. That's Providence's role here. And you do see Poseidon up on that roster, but in fact, Poseidon has stepped away from Purdue as of late, and Laggers has replaced in that role. Laggers is a junior actually who started the esports at Purdue organization, and while having taken a year off Siege, has come back and has really been a pretty strong component of this roster. You don't often see one person just jumping on into a roster and them, having the same success and having the same strengths and weaknesses as before. But Purdue, they've excelled in that category, and that's something I think we can definitely speak of, because having any team, even in Siege or in any esport, in any organization, where you put somebody else in the mix, but you're still able to keep up that work and keep up that flow, I think it's really impressive, and I think speaks volumes to the type of organization and the strong team that Purdue have been building over the years.
So, Jonah, we're highlighting that there's 2 new players to these rosters in total. We have Anarchy and Laggers. Do you think that's going to be a big factor moving to the series? Now, Anarchy, he's been playing the entire season, but he is a freshman, so he hasn't had that time to synergize as well as, some of the other rosters that are playing today. And Poseidon, a member of Purdue that has been around for so long, it's weird not to be able to say his name on stream. When we actually hop into game, I don't know if I'm going to be able to survive without saying the Poseidon. But do you think that's going to be affecting Purdue as they move into the semifinals?
To be completely honest, Chief, I think neither of these new roster additions are going to have much of an impact, because although it is an overall storyline and it's something that we talked about, from the regular season working on through to the Final Four now, these teams have come a long way and they have worked really hard at making sure that these players can mesh well and that they're not going to have to deal with any sort of new player kind of issues. And Anarchy, although being a new player overall in this roster, he has been a part of this roster for quite some time now. And so just seeing those things, I think what's going to be on the forefront a little bit more is going to be who prepared more for this matchup. Collegiate Siege is special in that sense because everyone is coming in with a lot of other things going on in their lives at once, right? They're not being paid to play Siege full-time like your professional teams out there. And so whoever puts in more work to strat and more work to grind this out, I really do think that team is going to be the victor today.
Well, let's put that to the test right now. Our map vetoes are ready to go, and in Collegiate, we see the same 4 maps over and over again. And just to remind you, Chalet is not in this map pool since we're wrapping up our, grand finals today, so Theme Park is still available. One of the traditional 4 maps, that is Clubhouse, Oregon, Villa, and Cafe. They are beyond loved in Collegiate, and we're going to have to see if they're actually available on the board. Again, this is a best of 5, which means you, in theory, could bring out 4 of those maps. But since you don't have a big, in-depth map pool, that means one of the maps that you're not quite comfortable on might be sneaking through.
I mean, we talked about the best of 5. It's going to be a long day for us, a long day for these players for sure. But the beauty of a best of 5 is that you cannot hide behind any map at all. The way the pick system works, pick, ban, pick, decider, that means that your opponent has the first chance to pull out a map that you may not be prepared on. You know what that means, Chief? You have to grind out and strat every single map in the pool. We're going to be starting on Coastline. We're going to be going to Clubhouse next. 2 maps that are pretty common, but Coastline is one that a lot of teams sometimes, let fall to the wayside a little bit. We're not going to be seeing Oregon. I think some people will be refreshed by that, nor will we be seeing Theme Park. So we do have a little bit of mix-ups in the pool, but for the most part, it's going to stay pretty standard. Consulate coming out next from Purdue. They are very strong on that map. Villa, the choice of NC State, and it's going to round out with a Cafe Classic decider.
And I'm actually surprised Villa is so, far back. It's map number 4 after all. NC State is brilliant on that map, and I would expect them to lead off with that, but they feel that Clubhouse is going to be their powerhouse. They want to guarantee that win, so when they move into Consulate, they're going to find themselves in that 2-0 advantage. Again, that's if their storybook, everything that they wrote on paper, ends up panning out. Now, with Coastline as our first map, that is a big question mark for me because in Collegiate in particular, this map can kind of de-evolve where strategies, as we know, Coastline doesn't always have, completely gets removed. If you wrote a strat book on paper or in a Google Doc, everybody hits Alt F4 pretty much immediately and forgets all their reinforcements, where to place their ADSs, and again, it devolves into just chaos, which can be quite fun to watch, but at the same time, it becomes quite taxing on players. You start to make mistakes. And again, returning back to that IGL conversation we're having earlier, if you're that IGL and you're starting to get tilted and frustrated, that can put you at a disadvantage on Coastline. But again, NC State, with that hive mind, all 5 of them making calls, maybe Coastline's a perfect position for them to start in. And remember, NC State did not choose that map.
It is interesting that I think, NC State allowing Coastline and Consulate through the bans, because in a best of 5, it is more important than ever to get your bans right, because you only have one ban and you want to get those maps that you're the strongest on picked and played as early as possible. And to see both Coastline and Consulate, arguably Purdue's strongest maps in the entire map pool, on the forefront of this matchup, that could be a little bit of concern for NCSU. The one thing, of course, they do have going for them is they've got, like we've highlighted already, a really strong leadership core. They've been putting in a lot of work to prepare for this matchup, so it's very possible that they've been grinding out strats on these 2 maps, knowing that Purdue want to go there today, that Purdue really want to select Coastline and Consulate, so if NCSU can come up with direct counter strats to the Purdue strategies that have been on broadcast time and time again, maybe that is exactly what NCSU needs here to come out on top.
And I would actually return to a point that you're making because, my philosophy in a best of 3, I see my opponent's map and I'm like, all right, you like Villa per se. Goodbye. That map is now off the pool. You can't play it, so you have to go to your second best. But as you're saying, you don't have that luxury. So if you want to remove your opponent's best map, that means you have to remove their second best map, because most teams are going to say, oh, I'm brilliant on Coastline, so I'm just going to instantaneously click that in, and you just have to have that strat book ready. And I love that nuance of the ban phase and even the 6-pick phase to a certain extent, where it's always about those little meta games, trying to, get in the heads of your opponents and trip them up before you even start to click heads in the server.
Well, Chief, we've already talked about this a little bit, and you brought up Villa as our decider, but it is interesting to see that map so far down the pool, given that I think in every single conference final we had, all best of 3s, Villa was one of the 2 primary maps every single time. So it's good to see that one, a little bit later on, and we actually may not end up seeing it at all today. But if there's one thing that I think people will say, not maybe for 100% certainty, but with some pretty solid confidence, that these 2 semifinals and then the eventual grand final are likely going to be the closest and sweatiest, coolest matches to watch in Collegiate for quite some time. The Akron GCU game, we could talk a little bit about that one. As we said, we'll be passing that one on to Caliber Jacobs and CDAPS after this best of 5, but that one is a grudge match. Those 2 teams have played each other across a variety of collegiate leagues like 4 or 5 times in the last 2 months, and GCU did win one of those matches, which is something that pretty much no other team out there in the collegiate ecosystem can say, that they've beaten Akron. So no doubt Akron are going to come out definitely very, very aggressive, pretty angry that GCU is one of those teams that did beat them once before. But in our most recent series where those 2 teams played, it was Akron who came out on top. So no doubt GCU, they've got their work cut out for them there. One of those teams will make it to the grand final against either Purdue or NC State. That one is going to be decided here.
Now, we don't do predictions as casters, and honestly, I'm really glad that we don't, because you could give me $1 million or the 30K prize pool, and I would never bet against any of these 4 rosters. I mean, they're just so good. I mean, there's a reason why that they're here in the semifinals. Everyone has their own unique skill set, their own unique win conditions, and the best part is all those win conditions can and could happen today. We just have to see, the mentality that you bring today. Are you prepared? This is going to be kind of a joke, but also meant seriously. These teams are used to playing at 9 p.m. at night. some of them are forced to wake up at 8:30 Pacific Standard Time. Jonah, let me tell you, my friend, those are not gamer hours. Like, if you have a 90-minute warm-up, that means you're starting at, what, 7 o'clock? I haven't woken up at 7 o'clock in so long, man. So that's a lot of coffee to get prepared for that. But enough jokes beside. This is a semifinal. It's serious, and it's about to go down here on Coastline.
Yeah, we can finally get things started, and we can, settle in for the long haul. We got a minimum of 3 maps awaiting us, and if there's anything I know about these two teams, neither is going to let themselves lose out in just 3 maps. It's going to be a long series, and Purdue are already starting it off pretty spicy. Purdue are going to come out with the Zofia ban. Pretty unexpected. Could be something of a target ban. Taco is a pretty hard-stuck Zofia player. I talked to both of these teams before the matchup, trying to get any fun facts about their play styles, anything I could use on broadcast, and I heard that Taco has a Zofia crutch, just a little bit. And no doubt Purdue are reading into that, and they're going to take that operator off the board early.
But that actually is a good operator remove. I mean, she's one of the few operators now, since Ashe has lost her flashbangs, that can, well, burn ADSs with my pancakes and destroy utility. So with her off the board, you're going to have to bring somebody else in play. Now, maybe it's an opportunity to have Zero step up to the plate, because he can also participate in that exact same, well, style. If you need him to burn an ADS, he can use those cameras, send them down range, they get grabbed, and then he can use that Gon 6 to destroy a shield. Oh, you also need him to open up a wall? Perfect. We're on Coastline. You don't need to bring a true hard breacher. Instead, you can bring that Zero. And if you're doing an execute from VIP per se, you're going to have a double reinforced wall in front of you. And you just open it up with that small little square trampoline-sized hole, and boom. Now you have that line of sight to directly challenge into Hookah. Our final bans, again, not much of a surprise there. Mira, always oppressive in every angle you put those. Mira windows and Valkyrie, a plethora of information removed off the board. You put a camera on any of those lovely palm trees, and the defense is going to be able to swing on you, get aggressive, and take those gunfights.
Well, speaking of, defense is exactly where Purdue will start things off. This being Purdue's map pick, NCSU have elected to go on the attacking half to kick things off. And on Coastline, honestly, we see this go a little bit back and forth. A good amount of teams do want to pick attack because you can really set the rhythm and set the pace of this entire series early on from the get-go. But some teams, like Akron, for example, find it a lot easier to defend this map than attack, and those are the teams who are definitely going to opt for the defensive side. NCSU, though, they seem clear in their ways, pulling out your pretty standard Coastline attacking lineup, but honestly, Chief, there really isn't one lineup you'd consider fully standard, and that's the beauty of this map. This is the one map in the entire map pool that is not bound to hard breachers. You do not need to frame your entire lineup, again, around one hard breacher or the next, and that's exactly why NCSU are going to be pulling out all the stops here. They've got Taco on the Yana, they've got NC Jack on the Capitao, and they're pulling out the Buck as well. Now, the Buck is an operator that's perfect for the vertical play, and generally we see a lot of down to up vertical play coming in from Blue Bar when attacking Billiards and Hookah. But what we're seeing now, Chief, is actually an unusual start from Purdue, and honestly, I'm loving what we're seeing already. They're going down to Blue Bar and Sunrise in round number 1.
And you're talking about how the attackers can change up their lineups, but you can do the same thing with defense, particularly downstairs on this tertiary bomb site. Teams go for 2 defensive philosophies. One, you expand into kitchen and expand your real estate out on that first floor, forcing the attackers to what they take that vertical control. They're going to have to push into your fixed positions on that first floor, or you can do what Purdue is doing now, expand up to Hookah, and with the exact same style of philosophy, you force NC State to take that second floor. It's going to be hotly contested, and you can see the clones and the drones from NC State trying to grab as much information so they can start to break down how Purdue is defending. But the problem is, 90 seconds have already been burned, and NC State, the majority of their man count, is still outside, and Taco will be the first casualty of our semifinals.
Providence, they're finding the first kill. NC Jack is going to be looking to answer that one back. Asphyxiating Bolt goes down range, but it's the SMG-11, which proves to be better. Anarchy and Drew, though, will quickly answer and deal with the vertical control that Purdue were holding for so long. Hangman, the player on Cool Vibe Stairs, as we were seeing a bit earlier, is no longer in this round. Anarchy taking up that position. A good shot there from the Buck as well, and Smitty will be the next to fall. So now NCSU, from such a slow start, they now have an advantage. And now that their air jab just detonated, NCSU should have a good idea of where Mila is attempting to flank from. Dean Malusi in this case, now rotating back to the bomb site to lock it down for this eventual execute. Now with 30 seconds to go, that's NCSU's priority.
That vertical play is going to be so crucial. It's all about maneuvering the defense in positions that they're not comfortable in. Anarchy is going to go for the flashbang lock, and it's going to be force the rotation of Lager. He's going to take a little bit of HP loss, but he's still more or less alive. Predator in the bomb site going for his default plant. He has the cover, and he's going to start that sequence. But is there enough cross cover for Mila? It's perfect. There was no cross cover. Now 1v2 with 2 seconds left on the clock. Mila has to win these gunfights. She's going to be unable to do so as we now find ourselves in the post plant.
Mila now on the retake. The bomb down, and that means Drew and Pred can retreat and get the heck out of Mudroom here. They're going to move outside and play this extremely passively. That's going to force Mila to get very aggressive. Whipping out into Mudroom now, going for the swing. Here comes the swing. Oh no, Drew's looking the wrong way. Mila gets one kill, but Pred will get it back. A nice job there to give NCSU the first round.
And I liked what we saw on defense to start things off. Holding upstairs, delaying time. But the problem is, when you have fixed positions in hookah, after a certain point, you're a dead man on an island. You can take gunfights, you might be able to win them, but you're going to have to stand your ground and keep taking those gunfights. You can't rotate safely. You might have a fixed position behind a deployable shield, but we saw how important those firebolts were at removing Smoke's power position. And just like that, NC State saw the opening and hole. They took that vertical control, and it was just lights out after that. Purdue never had a contingency plan. Their whole goal was, again, designed to waste time, and it never really did that beyond 90 seconds. That's the problem with that upstairs hold. You just don't have the ability to rotate safely back to your bomb site. Now, if you were to try that downstairs and kitchen, you kind of run into that same problem where it's going to be difficult to return to your bomb site, but at least you can hold very long lines of sight over by prep and look directly into the blue bomb site, for example. So that's your contingency plan there, that rotation back, but we never saw that out of the side of Purdue.
That's something that, you know, we highlight with a lot of vertical extensions, Chief, right? I mean, it's so hit or miss sometimes. You can waste so much time off the clock, but if you're losing out the man advantage because of it, it's not often worth it. In that case, Purdue did an excellent job of actually finding the two opening picks, but shockingly enough, NC State were still put together enough and still composed enough that they could quickly answer those kills back and then still have enough time to apply the vertical pressure and then go for the plant. I'm very impressed in what we saw from round number 1 there. Purdue, that was a setup that we have not seen before from them. At least I don't think we've seen that before. And I love that they're innovating and at such an important stage in the game where the stage is as big as ever and the stakes are as high as ever. So it's great to see them changing things up. And if that's any indicator of what we can expect going forward, I think we're in for a pretty solid day. And I mean, we can see it here by Hangman pulling out the Frost. A more unique pick, but one that has been seeing, you know, an increase in the meta as of late, and one that Hangman is hoping can hold down this hookah and billiards bomb site.
NC State is in a very similar position that they were in round 1. The majority of their troops are still trying to find their footholds in the map, and sure, you have VIP control, but look at the entire wall. Instead of it being fully reinforced, it has been Swiss cheesed. That means there can be a very clever defender from Purdue playing that deployable shield or playing that long angle. And we're talking about making, well, changes. That Frost is a 1.5 times sight and is a great operator to go for the swing. However, Laggers, trying to play vertically, will lose his life as his Nitro Cell doesn't collect. And Purdue, their big brain, long range game is not working out at all for them as 2 of their members have fallen.
Yeah, both Laggers and Providence will no longer be impactful in round number 2, instead relegated to camera duty for this one. In the meantime, though, you've got NCSU now with 2 men up, just in the mid-round at the moment. This is the point where the round slows down a bit, and they look to gain this intel. Anarchy playing outside on the hookah balcony, just applying a good bit of pressure to make sure that, well, Hangman knows that there's pressure mounting from the north, and that pressure will, well, swiftly be alleviated now that Hangman was able to find the head of the buck. So Purdue are closer to bringing this one back to even. You still have Smitty holding down cool vibes, and you still have Mila playing below. 2 impacts in hand, could use the vertical pressure to deny any sort of billiards execute. Eyes on the default plant spot, and actually, this could prove to be pretty big. The one danger is that the site might be a little bit understaffed. If Hangman were to fall here, well, there's not much that Purdue will be able to do here. Mila doesn't seem to care, picking up Pred in the meantime, and that means it's time for that NCSU execute. Taco claims Hangman, there goes the pink player, and here comes Mila. This is the play they need to get happening. No, the impact is slightly off the mark. A critical miscalculation, and now a retake is what is necessary. Mila picks up another, now a double kill on the round. That's Drew to hit the grave, and now it's Smitty, the next player to approach this engagement, working their way in from hookah, looking for any over-aggressive NC State attackers, but they've done a great job of retreating and playing this one passively. 1 in luggage hall, 1 on the upside down rappel. NC Jack will find that kill, leaving Smitty all alone, and with only 10 seconds to do it, he's got to get crazy aggressive here. He'll find one shot onto Taco, goes for the run onto the Aqua player, but NC Jack says no. Denies Smitty, denies the retake, and NCSU, that's 2 rounds in a row.
Now, if Mila was a Nitrocell wielding operator, that round would have been completely different because the Nitrocell would have been able to kill that planter. But I don't necessarily hate the strategy that we saw at Purdue. We have seen Nitrocell, or not Nitrocell denial, impact grenade denials work before. Let's go back to SI 2020, Rampy's, well, tiny Pokeball from Jim. It saved the day for Space Station, and it delivered them probably the round that won them the entire tournament. So that philosophy, that mentality does work. I just think Mila didn't have a good enough understanding of, well, how the bomb site works. And that becomes a little concerning because you can see exactly where that bomb is. You just kind of see the outlines on your screen, so you know exactly where to throw that impact grenade. I think in the heat of the moment, Mila was like, oh no, I just need to deny this plant, and started to rush. But that's when you as a player need to, take that deep breath, analyze, and wait a millisecond. Then you throw that impact grenade, it collects exactly where you need to, and you line up those bullets because, well, a post-plant upside-down rappel is something that you're not going to be able to deal with. Now, on the attacker side, NC State, I have to be critical of them as well. They had the opening duels, they got them relatively quickly, and then they continued on with their linear push, putting all their resources towards the east. If they were able to make that rotation over to the west and south side of the map sooner, they probably would have been able to get that execution down and would give them a little bit more time to set up their post plant. But at the end of the day, NC State was successful in round 2, so I can't be overly critical.
I really like that you did bring that up, though, Chief. It kind of was the opposite flow of the previous round. Rather than, Purdue finding the opening picks and NC State crawling it back, it was kind of the other way around here. But like you mentioned, NC State did eventually prevail and held on to that lead. Had Mila gotten that impact on target, had the plant been denied, I think the score would look a little bit differently, and Purdue could have easily taken that round. But for now, our focus shifts to round number 3. And Taco working their way in already inside of VIP. The goal here, again, taking control of this luggage hall, approaching from that Aqua side, no doubt, but they'll be sure to apply the pressure from elsewhere. Taco pulling out the Gong 6, and that's going to deal with the Malusi Banshee, or as it's better known, the Wub Wub, sitting in the middle of the hallway towards Vase. With that dealt with, that should mean Purdue need to be a bit careful of how this pressure is now mounting from NCSU. The one thing we don't see coming out from Purdue right now is any player in office or in blue bar. There is a little bit of that vertical extension, and that comes in the form of Mila, who's holding down a bullet hole in Sunrise. This could be just dastardly if it's able to work out, as Predator may be tempting to swing on that.
And that's the thing. NC, where is your drones? You need to be confirming the entire map. If nothing more, just to confirm whether or not that B bomb hatch is either reinforced or soft, because that is going to be a big highway for Purdue. If they get particularly pressured, they can drop. Now, if it's reinforced, that means that's a position where they can stand on and just try to dodge around a frag grenade that might be coming around. But again, when you are an IGL, or I guess in NC States, when you're all IGLs, you have to have that information in your back pocket. Providence will find the opening duel, but he's going to get immediately refragged. Anarchy forced to go to the shotgun, but no, he will not be able to do anything beyond that. Mila, the lurking pressure downstairs, is going to put Purdue in another strong position, and it's going to get even better as NC Jack falls.
Yeah, Drew and Taco are left alone to pull this one back. Drew will recover the diffuser, but wow, that attack is just going to be dismantled at every turn. There goes Taco. Hangman will deliver that one, and now the double kill to close out the round. Purdue take a very easy round number 3, a complete opposite of the way the last 2 rounds have already unfolded. Now, the big scuffle there came downstairs in Blue Bar. It was not necessarily a retake from Purdue, but it was no doubt a push to take back that map control that NCSU had worked so hard to acquire. They had the buck, they had the ash, were applying vertical onto billiards, working through their checklist so that they could get that eventual billiards plant pushing in from Aqua. But Purdue, rather than waiting to challenge that on the top floor and allowing the vertical play to unfold, they made a quick decision to apply heavy, aggressive pressure into Blue Bar, and boy oh boy did that decision pay off. They found several kills, dismantling the vertical play, and even if the remaining 2 attackers, Drew and Taco, upstairs were able to just get into billiards, they would see the entire floor below them get completely destroyed as well, because then Purdue were the ones applying the vertical play that NCSU had been working so hard to acquire up to that point. So an excellent job there from Purdue, making a quick decision and executing it perfectly.
And I want to build upon that just a little bit more, Jonah, because I was watching the drone economy, and, you know, the devs have made a brand new feature where you can actually look exactly what the drone economy is like for the teams and where their drones are placed. So if we look at the top right-hand corner of our screen, we can see a 3 and 7. That means there are 3 drones currently out on the field of play and 7 in the back pocket of attackers. And back to round 3, it seemed like NC State, they pushed for their map control, utilizing only a finite amount of drones on flank watch. They got tunnel vision, like, we're just going to use our buck, we're going to open up our vertical play, that's all we need to do. But they never really, dotted their I's and crossed their T's, and as a result, they put so many L's on the board that they just lost their entire man count. You have to have plans and contingencies. And where are those flank drones? Well, you can put 1 in jungle, 1 in T-Hunt, and, people think Coastline's all about fragging, but part of fragging is information, and the most crucial aspect you have when you're an attacker is not always those entry drones. It's those little drones that are tucked in a cubby providing you with all the information in the world.
I mean, this is the thing about Coastline, right, Chief? It's the story we've been talking about, how these tiny little mistakes can mean that your entire round just falls apart. It's the frag-heavy nature. It's just the brutal nature of this map. And with Providence, a nice C4 right onto the toes of Anarchy, that's a brilliant start. And look who that operator is. That's your buck. That is your operator with the #1 job of applying vertical pressure to the kitchen. You have the ash and you have the breaching charges and the breaching rounds, but now that is your only soft destruction capability, with the majority of it already taken care of. So Purdue are looking up after that perfect frag from Providence. And, well, NCSU still need to be careful. There are 2 C4s still remaining, or 1 C4 in the hand of Laggers, yet to be sent on down range just yet, because Laggers is holding down main lobby with the TCSG. We're seeing this interesting setup. They've completely destroyed the wall into black box, into service here. And that means that holding main lobby and taking main lobby control is a necessity for NCSU if they want to go for that service plant. For now, the vertical pressure still being applied as Predator will get another kill to finally equalize the man count.
this round can go to either one of these rosters. Purdue has expanded their bomb site pretty much to the entire first floor. This is going to give them great positions when they go for their ranged engagements. But with one of your best operators, that TCSG wielder, that 2-time scope down but not out, Lagger is unable to participate. That's a dangerous position to be in. NC Jack gets downed by a Frostmat. He's going to be back up to 20 HP, but the flank from Taco is going to be perfectly timed. Providence is going to fall. We're going to find ourselves momentarily in the post plant. Laggers is still unable to be rezzed. It's now going to be on Goose Smitty. Forced to go against 2 since Drew is now down but not out. Retaking his bomb site. He doesn't know where his opponents are. Confirming that down, the human drone of Drew unable to make those communications. But Goose Smitty, he's in quite a pickle. There's really nowhere for him to go. He's looking at all the positions. He's going to tease the diffuser, maybe baiting NC State to go for the vault in, and it won't happen. It's just going to be the nice long angle from the LMG. NC Jack, he takes the day for his team.
Okay, so 3 rounds for NCSU now, each of which have looked pretty strong. What's impressed me the most, Chief, is these holds from Purdue are looking so good until the last few seconds, where all of a sudden NC State, they just flick a switch, they somehow immediately determine the right protocol to dismantle that defense, and when the bomb's going down, Purdue have to just collapse their hold and just try to retake that bomb site as soon as possible. And as we've seen from that round and 2 rounds previously, NC State are simply not allowing that to happen. It's very impressive what they've been able to do just thus far. That last round, we were highlighting the play of Laggers in main lobby, but as the pressure from NCSU was mounting from elsewhere, they were not going for that service take. Instead, pressuring Kitchen, Laggers was forced to act a bit more rashly than I think Laggers would have liked to have been forced to do. Instead of holding down main lobby and denying the plant in service, just holding down bathroom, holding down black box, instead, Laggers pushed into courtyard, and that is exactly what landed the Goyo in their grave. Taco on the coverage from above, utilizing a good bit of soft destruction and excellent work there. Just overall, NCSU, despite not dealing with these power positions that Purdue were undertaking at early points in the round, they were still taking map control, and they used that map control to eventually just hop on into the site and get a perfect execute.
We're going to be going back to Kitchen, and Jonah, you know I hate going to bomb sites back-to-back, especially if you're bringing out the same strategy. And so far, Purdue, they're not going to be changing too much up, and that's concerning to me. Again, the idea behind Purdue is to expand out the entire first floor and use them all these buffer rooms as power positions. So that's a great strategy. There's nothing wrong with that. But NC State, as you're highlighting, did a wonderful job of breaking that down. And the defense that Purdue has built, it's kind of like, you know, building a set of Legos. When you build a big, complicated set of Legos, you each have these own little bags, and each bag is kind of like a room, those buffer rooms. And you build them all, and then you put them together. That's that final execute for NC State. And to their credit, they've done a wonderful job of being able to build those bags, combine them, and execute. Are they going to be able to replicate that here in round 5? NC State, they're still a little bit slow, but again, it's all about doing that due diligence, sending those drones down range so Anarchy can start his remodel of Coastline.
Well, I mean, here's a big difference, Chief. Already in this round, Purdue haven't gotten the almost saving grace C4 kill that they had in the previous round. Instead, Taco is going for the aggressive play. Taco finds themselves in the middle of the bomb site behind the bomb chassis and now finds themselves in the grave. Anarchy is going to answer back, playing the vertical control quite well there, but an interesting turn of events in this round. NC State, they saw an opportunity, attempted to seize it, but unfortunately Taco was not able to do much more than die. An interesting play, possibly baiting out the Gemini drone, and so Purdue weren't challenging or swinging on that position. An interesting play, but at the end of the day, it was Purdue who found the upper hand in that one. But now that Pred has cut down Providence, the tides have turned once again. There's one player left to hold down this potential kitchen window vault, and that's Smitty holding this line from the hallway here, but in the meantime, all of this on-site presence is crumbling. That's a double kill for Pred. Now this one onto Hangman, whipping out that pistol. Here comes the smokes, here comes the firebolt, and here comes the execute. Mila says goodbye in this round as Pred gets a triple kill. Smitty forced to bring this back. He'll get a double, lining up the planter, lining up Drew as well. That's huge, but Anarchy on the coverage from above will seal it out anyway. And NCSU will take their second kitchen attack in a row.
I have to say, that was a great read by Goose Smitty there. He knew his only option was to take that gunfight early on, because when you're putting that bomb down effectively, you lose an active gun for the entire duration of the plant, or getting that gun back up from having that briefcase on the ground to actually ADSing. So he hears the plant going down. He knows that he has the smoke that he can use as an advantage. You Stewie 2K your way through taking those gunfights. And I have to be critical of NC State. They won that round, but their entire strategy was to YOLO through the kitchen window. I have to be critical of that. I mean, Taco, a great player. What was his read there? I mean, we see that in, Silver Elo ranked. Oh, hey, there's an opening. I'm just going to vault in. Come on. Like, those mistakes can start to build up. You're losing one of your, best players. You're losing a set of frag grenades, you're losing a Gon 6, and essentially drones that grow in your back pocket. If we maybe followed up that Gemini drone with, an active gun, that play would have been phenomenal. Or if NC State, doubled and tripled down on that mentality, putting the majority of their man count into that bomb site in that rush-style scenario, it would have been better. But I always have a beef to pick when I see rosters that are committing to half aggression, half not aggression. You have to either do one or the other, because if you do neither, you tend to lose, your man count senselessly.
Well, Chief, I'm going to pull out the bright spots of that one, because at the end of the day, it was NCSU's win in that round, right? And I think it was very impressive that despite that play from Taco, they were able to take that round, and in the end, just pretty cleanly. And I think the big difference there was Anarchy on the vertical play. There was a lot of that soft destruction that they were not able to apply in the previous round, but they were able to rely on in round number 5. So much so that Purdue were simply just not ready for the coverage to be there at all times. It was first Pred playing the vertical, then Anarchy as well, both doubling up, just holding off those kitchen rotates. Excellent work there to shut that push down. But now the push from NCSU, it is still in its infancy, trying to figure out exactly where they want to approach hookah and billiards from, as Purdue head back to this site for now the third time, looking to repeat their round 3 success, where they found a victory. The first step in this defense, the first obstacle in NCSU's way, that's going to be Smitty playing below here in Sunrise. This is a pretty typical position when holding down hookah. An interesting operator to do it because you don't have any vertical capacity with the Jaeger. No C4, no impacts or anything of the sort. But as long as there's been some soft destruction from above, you can still hold that position down and deny the plant if you can.
Jonah, we've gone to round 6 without mentioning that Coastline can be somewhat of an attacker-sided map, but I'm going to break that curse. So if you're a fan of Purdue, the roster that is hailing from the Central Conference, you don't need to fear just yet. Defense can be, again, very difficult to hold. When the attackers are applying a multi-angle crossfire, they can challenge you from outside windows. It becomes pretty much impossible. You have to put players on islands where they solo roam downstairs, just like Goose Smitty is doing. He gets flashed, somehow not punished, and allowed to rotate back over to T-Hunt. And Predator is going to fall also in that exchange. And Goose Smitty, the option of going aggressive, he'll take that option. But the only thing he finds is death and despair.
Yeah, Anarchy with the 6th kill of the map, joining Pred on that top frag position. Taco again getting pretty aggressive there, working up in through the hallway towards the billiards door, and that is something that laggers will swiftly deny. So with 25 seconds left, the pressure on the hookah balcony, now the sole focus for NCSU. NC Jack creeping on through, but gets his head taken right on off. Drew answers it back, and Purdue still have the advantage though. And with only 15 seconds left, we need to see NCSU get crazy aggressive here. Drew will find one, but Mila and Hangman will be there to answer, and Purdue will indeed repeat that hookah success, taking round 6, taking their second defensive round, and completing the first half in a pretty solid fashion. A 4-2 attacker-sided split. Definitely not unexpected.
And again, NC State, they're going to find themselves in the exact same pitfall they did back in round 3, where they're almost like internally debating on where do we want to push from, what real estate do we want to control. And that might be the problem of a hive-minded style of IGL, where you need that central figure, that leadership voice to say, we're doing this, this, and this at exactly these marks on the clock, because they were like, oh, we're going to be droning in from office's side. Oh, we found a roadblock. There is defenders here. Well, we're going to change things up, and we're going to be pushing in from the pink bar. Well, they're going to find themselves with the exact same style of roadblock. They put the majority of their troop count to deal with that position. But when you have 4 attackers flying in from the same fatal funnel, it's very difficult to find success because it takes one clever defender to hold a line of sight in the crossfire, and the on-site or the off-site pressure that floods can start to lose. NC State, they're done with attack, at least on coastline, assuming that we don't go into overtime. So they don't really have to worry about that mentality, but they also have to keep in mind of how crossfires work, where they're playing, and how they're playing together, because that becomes just as important and critical here on defense. Coastline, as we're highlighting, can be attacker-sided, so the moment you stop synergizing with your teammates on defense, the cat might be out of the bag.
Well, that's the plan for NCSU now. They're shifting over to the defensive side, and they'll be looking to hold down hookah and billiards as their primary bomb site of choice. Now, Purdue, a very typical approach for them is a large focus on that vertical play. That's why we're going to see Providence on the buck. Now, the one operator that we haven't seen yet on Coastline is Ying. Hangman, instead of bringing out the Capital that NCSU were rocking on their attacks, the Ying is the replacement, and a good one at that. You have similar area denial capability. You have those flashes, those candelas that can simply remove defensive presence, or at least their ability to see and shoot back in a bomb site. Not to mention, you've got that secondary hard breach gadget, just like Capital does as well. So a lot of similar utility being brought out from Purdue. They've got similar priorities, and, well, they're starting things off well. Mila is going to get the opening kill onto NC Jack, and that is not the player that NC State wanted to lose at this stage in the round. That is your Smoke, the player responsible for holding down the pink bar, holding down a default billiards plant. And those toxic babes will not be a factor in the remainder of this round.
And this is why Purdue, when they're on defense, they put so much of their man count downstairs in the blue and pink bar to basically make it impossible, or at least very troublesome for the attacking team to start that vertical play. Now, NC State, they haven't done that whatsoever. They put their entire man count upstairs, and now they're forced to take really aggressive gunfights. And Taco is going to be on the bad end of that exchange, losing his life, and we're just sub 70 seconds, and the defense are going to have to start to make plays. Their backs are literally against the wall, and they have no choice other than to start to remove the man count of Purdue. They're going to have to swing. Our first round of Candelas, they're going to go down range. 2 of them being used, but there's no capitalization on that utility. Nobody's swinging in, and that actually could be a good position for NC State, especially with Drew finding that kill.
Mila is there to answer, though. The player on that big window rappel just persisting on this angle, not allowing anyone to rotate back to the site to get this support going. Hangman expending the final Candela, not tempting a swing though. Instead, the plant is going down in billiards. Smitty on the coverage, now actually getting aggressive here, but Anarchy's going to shut down one. The Ying is gone now. Anarchy now looking to get this retake going alongside Pred. They're going to push on up, but they've got to worry about the upside down rappel. That's Mila, now a triple kill on the round, leaving Predator alone on the retake. A very dangerous situation, and with the vertical play now coming out from Smitty, an impossible situation for Pred to recover from, and Purdue will take the round. An excellent attack.
Hookah, everything about it is vertical play, as you highlighted, but both of these rosters have to be mindful. The defense has to say, our bomb site's crucial. We have to always deny access to the plant. That should be step one, but the big giga brain question is, how do you actually do that? And it all extends from, well, your extension downstairs. Where are you placing your man count? How are you stopping the attackers from taking that map control? Because if you have a strong hold downstairs in blue bar, there is no way Providence on that buck is going to be allowed to push in through blue bar. Again, Providence that exact same style of defense when they were there back in round 6 and 3. That's why they were successful. And when you're a team, you have to be learning from your successes and your mistakes. When you're in attack, you have to say, oh, wow, I like how the defense is playing this. Maybe I can reverse engineer this and apply that to when I move over to defense, because everything in Rainbow Six Siege comes full circle. You might have, 6 rounds of defense. Maybe you're playing an attacker-sided map or a defender-sided map. It doesn't really matter. But at some point, you're going to find yourselves on the side that isn't as strong. So what are you going to do differently? Or how are you going to learn? How are you going to analyze yourself and your play to have some step to maybe, mitigate that loss?
Well, the one step that NCSU definitely are taking early on is at least switching up bomb sites, and as you highlighted earlier, Chief, that's always something we like to see. So they're going to kitchen, and they're opting for a good bit of this horizontal extension. We're seeing some soft destruction applied here on the wall between Courtyard and Blue Bar, the same setup that Purdue also brought out on their attack. And again, we are seeing the Frost in play. Seeing this Canadian operator make her competitive scene or competitive debut increase is always good to see, but it's always mixed results in how this operator can work. You bring a secondary shotgun and a deployable shield, so even if those frost mats aren't impactful, at the very least you have a ton of other secondary utility you bring to the table. But actually we've seen a little bit of those frost mats work. On that kitchen jump in, you hop through the window in those closing moments of the round. You're not going to be looking down at the floor. You're going to be gun up, taking a gunfight, and that's exactly where the frost mats can be so effective. Ooh, Anarchy. Aggressive hold here of Theater alongside Taco. The swing out onto 90 Hall nets him the kill onto Smitty, and now 2 more Purdue attackers will begin to pressure on that position, and that is going to encourage at least one player to fall off. But Taco, overstaying their welcome just a little bit, will be unable to drop down the hatch back towards the bathroom, will instead fall off to the grave.
Providence got that refrag without any drone coverage. That's quite concerning, because there's no way you should be an attacker with 100 seconds and not being followed up by a drone. Again, he won that gunfight. Great on him. He's a great player, but little small details like that can start to cost you a round, especially since you've lost 2 of your players, your primary entry as well as your flex, so your flank watch. And how are you going to be able to attack? Well, you still have that vertical play as an asset. You have Buck and Sledge, so pretty much that entire top 4 will be removed. Call in the construction crew because that floor will be no more. But once you remove the defense from their power positions, what are you going to be able to do? It's not like you can go for a smoke dump, cutting off lines of sight. You're going to have to use those Candelas, which is a great tool to have, but is it going to be enough? Because the defense, they're still sitting back on an incredibly deep angle from jungle.
And you also have Anarchy holding down security, really not getting too aggressive, just going for this passive hold and possibly a late flank. NC Jack holding down the bomb site is going to be felled, and Providence will seize that opportunity to go for this plant. Oh, a great C4 from Anarchy, shutting down the planter, and Hangman now at 1 HP is going to have to pull this one back. Here comes the drop in from Mila. Anarchy denies it, and that's an ace from Anarchy, getting the last 2, dropping down the hatch, cutting down the planter, just finding every kill in the round to give NCSU the win.
This is why I love Anarchy, Jonah, because he's a great player. He's brilliant, has mechanical skill, but nothing he does is particularly flashy. He realizes he has a job to do, and he's going to do that job to the best of his ability. And if that means he has to ace, he's going to do that. He's going to put himself in a position to always be successful. And, he may have got all those kills that round, but that was truly a team effort for NC State. They did so many things well upstairs. They sniped away drones. They wasted time. They retreated for the most part, exactly when they should have. And even when it came down to the diffuser being put on the deck, well, they had a plan for that. Now, I do have to be a little bit critical of the NC State setup, though. I like to see rosters, Swiss cheese some of that quad wall between bathroom just as a fallback contingency. So when you do hear that plant down, you can kind of see the feat, you can directly challenge, but the Nitro Cell was good enough in our case. And I also want to highlight the difference between strategies between these two teams. NC State, they elected to go for an upstairs hold, where Purdue, they did that bottom stairs where they used pretty much the entire first floor as their bomb site, where NC State, they used different buff rooms. They started upstairs in Master, they retreated back to reception, and that's where their strategy ended because Purdue was unable to do a multi-pronged assault.
Well, with the round number 8 victory now under their belt, they'll move on to a pretty solid position. NCSU now with a 2-round advantage, maintaining that lead, and they'll be looking to close things out soon. To do so, they are heading downstairs now to their tertiary bomb site of choice of Blue Bar and Sunrise Bar. Now, when we saw Purdue take up this site, we saw heavy vertical play, as you highlighted, Chief, and as we've talked a good bit about already, but that is not the plan here for NCSU. Instead, they're focusing a lot more on this horizontal extension. You've got Fred holding down Office, just holding off that south side push, and even taking a couple of vertical challenges as well. The connection between these top 2 floors, at least on this Sunrise and this Hookah side, that's going to be your cool vibe stairs position. And that's exactly why Drew is holding down this position as the Mozzie. They're bringing the Mozzie Pest in play. You've got that information denial. You don't have that C4 though. A bad throw coming out from Drew. Smitty's going to emerge unscathed, at least from that detonation, and so this pressure can continue to build. The one thing though that Purdue didn't notice was Taco. The sneaky vigil holding out on that penthouse side, finding the opening kill of the round, and that's on Mila, the player at the top frag, 12 kills at the moment. Laggers gets an answer and responds on to Anarchy, another player with 12 kills, and the player who found the ace in the previous round. So both of these teams are looking up. They're looking to get this attack going, but now Purdue, sensing they need to get a little bit more aggressive, they're going to pop open this Blue Bar wall and might opt for a bit of an execute right now.
We're going to have to see what NC State has to say about that. If they've opened up all the quad wall, Predator can swing and pretty much deny any of those plants. But Purdue seems to be very much aware of this as they rotate one of their troops over to the east. A smoke grenade is going to go out. Providence is going to win a gunfight on Predator. Now that your pressure from the east has fully been lost, this is a perfect position for Purdue to be in as they constantly are winning gunfights. Now a 1v4. It's going to be almost impossible for NC Jack to find any success. He's on 1 HP, 1 Toxic Babe, and an SMG-11. With only 17 bullets and the inability to control recoil, it's going to be impossible for him. He loses his life to Providence, and that's exactly what we needed to see if you're a fan of Purdue.
That Purdue attack was excellent. While it started off slow, they made probably the biggest mid-round adaptation we've seen from either team so far. Another thing that Coastline allows you to do, but still requires a coordinated team effort. Providence, no doubt, making that call. They decided, you know what? Let's ditch the vertical control. Let's forget about Sunrise for now. And they fully pivoted their entire attacking presence to that Office and Blue Bar side. They sensed that, wait a minute, there's pretty much no on-site pressure. The only on-site pressure came in the form of the smoke. NC Jack, he had a couple of opportunities to throw those toxic canisters on down, but those opportunities it didn't seem to matter because with only 1 defender standing between Purdue and a plant and 3 remaining defenders off the bomb site, Purdue could simply just, I guess, play the odds, throw enough bodies at the problem, and eventually NC Jack is not going to be able to hold that down. NCSU, they couldn't get the read in time to rotate around and deny that plant. Purdue, just that entire way, since the moment they made that big pivot, I mean, just an exceptional round, and they went from arguably being on the back foot, time starting to tick away, to just rolling through the defense and completely dismantling every NCSU defender who attempted to retake.
And another difference between these rosters is how they're electing to hold Hookah. Purdue, they decided to Swiss cheese everything that happens in VIP. Now, from NC State, they're electing to only reinforce one of those walls, the one towards the west. And again, it's all about turning VIP, one of those power positions for the attackers, to apply a crossfire into no man's land, but there's no Swiss cheese whatsoever from NC State. So are they going to try to go for a nitro cell denial from underneath? Well, you have two of those nitro cells to be successful. And even if that strategy doesn't work, you can, in theory, do a retake of pink bar as well as blue bar, but look at that. Purdue has pretty much their entire man count downstairs, and the smoke spot, being played by, no surprise, NC Jack on the smoke, is forced to stand up on the couch because Providence is becoming a very angry shark and trying to remove his feet.
Yeah, without NCSU applying any downstairs pressure to deny this push, Purdue have been able to start the vertical play, and almost no time was wasted in doing so. They got that going in the first 45 seconds of the round, and that's proving to be quite a nuisance here. A really good frag grenade. NC Jack gonna get stuck on the couch, and he's gonna get taken down as a result. An unfortunate turn of events there for NC Jack. Anarchy as well. That's your Maestro caught out in Hookah, who is already going to be taken on down. Taco now, in a desperate effort to pull this one back, is getting quite aggressive onto the player on this rappel, but it is Hangman who wins out that scuffle. It's Predator and Drew, the two players that remain, and Pred is, well, alone downstairs, hoping to deny the vertical pressure that Purdue are continuing to hold down. Drew now on the retake in Aqua. He knows exactly what he's dealing with, but Purdue, they know it as well. Smitty on the swing, but unable to deliver the shots. Now the next player in Drew's way, that's going to be Mila on the classic big window rappel, shifting to the upside down position and shifting Drew straight into the 6-foot grave. Now it's Pred on the retake from Luggage Hall. His position telegraphed. Laggards with the headshot. Purdue with the round, taking round number 10 and clawing it back, taking that 2-round advantage and making it 0.
NC State, they need to change up their defense on Hookah. It's just not working for them. The reason is they give all the control to Purdue and offices and blue bar, and that's where their defense begins to crumble. They can't play comfortably. Why? Well, because the floor is being literally removed from underneath their feet. As soon as there's one little iceberg left, well, the Sharks just pounce, and they send their frag grenades up sky high. And NC State needs to learn that lesson. They've lost that bomb site now twice, and again, you have to be on your toes, constantly learning and adapting, analyzing your defenses. And a loss, might be a 1 being added to your opponent's scoreboard, but that doesn't mean you can't be, in air quotes, a winner as well. That is when you actually learn what they're doing. So far, NC State, when they bring out their Hookah defenses, they're really not learning from those mistakes. And again, it's all about map control and what would happen if they, put a lot of their troop counts over, in kitchen per se. They open up a large chunk of the wall. They open up that quad wall. Now you can play an incredibly long angle, and Purdue won't be able to start that vertical play comfortably without now clearing the north side of the map. That's playing another mini game that they have to deal with, another roadblock. But when you give them full free range, it's just too easy for them. Anarchy, he's going to start off with some chaos with the spawn peak, but no damage being sent down range.
Well, that play there, that aggression from Anarchy, I think it's indicative of how NCSU are feeling right now. Because despite the scoreline being even, I'd argue that NC State are no doubt on the back foot here. Of our 4 now attacking rounds from Purdue, only one of them has NCSU been able to win out successfully. And that round, it was on this bomb site no less, but it came on the shoulders of Anarchy's ace. And you're likely not going to be able to replicate that success twice in a row, or at least most likely. And it seems that NCSU, they need to make some changes here. Anarchy is going to remain on this top floor at least for now, but once the drone comes through, identifying his position, he'll rotate away and retreat to the first floor. But what that means is that within 60 seconds of the round, Purdue now have complete control of this second floor. And now their next step, Swiss cheese the ceiling of the bomb site and mount the pressure onto the objective. Anarchy with a C4 in hand. That's the one line of defense between a potential just absolute disaster here for NCSU, because Providence, for now, just droning to make sure this is clear. But in just a moment, that skeleton key is going to come out, and the ceiling of this bomb site is going to be removed.
that nitrocell is going to be sent with no information. That can become quite an interesting place to be. You have to use game sense and a good prediction, and that nitrocell has not been removed. You kind of send it, oh, you know, the floor was removed here. If I triangulate this position, he's probably here, but there's, you know, like a 33% chance of actually landing it true. Anarchy has already sent it down range, and we can see the explosion, and it hasn't done anything. The only player that lost HP was Taco in that earlier engagement. Sub 60 seconds left on the clock. The attackers are still going to constantly run through basically their whole mental game, removing that ceiling, starting to apply pressure, and then rotating their troops back down to that first floor to start with their true execute. All players alive and well, and we're going to have to see when this battle starts out.
Well, NCSU are teasing a possible retake. You've got a couple of players working their way up Cool Vibe stairs right now, but they're going to have to fall back. With NC Jack off the board, with Providence now building this pressure, NCSU are in a dangerous position. Thankfully for them, Taco is going to find another kill eventually before being felled to the DBNO position. Oh, there goes Hangman finding another. That's Drew and Pred. All that remains, and now essentially a post-plant position. Laggers sticking the diffuser, getting it down range, but here comes Drew. So much potential here, but missing a couple of critical shots. Now his position is known. They've got their eyes on Hall of Fame, and they've got their eyes on the head of the Jaeger. Pred is all that remains. Now the vertical play successful for the Frost. Knows where they're coming from, but can't quite connect the fatal blow. Purdue will roll through the bomb site, and a clean execute means they will take round number 11, and they now surpass NCSU in the round count and move themselves on to match point.
That was a ballsy plant by Purdue. They planted in a Malusi Wub Wub, constantly being given away by that disco sound, and we're talking about how NC State, the last time they went to Kitchen, they decided to not remove enough of the bottom part of that wall. To their credit, they started to remove some of the wall, but not in the place that they could cover every single plant position. And again, there were members of NC State roaming over in reception. They needed to hear that Malusi. I have no idea how they didn't. Most likely they did, but they were being challenged from security, as well as that top hatch that we saw in Master Bedroom. And you can kind of see why, going back to Purdue's defense on Kitchen, they elected to reinforce that top hatch, because they realized, sure, we can rotate through a different avenue, but if we rotate through that hatch, we can get back to our bomb site sooner. But that highway that we set up in our own defense can be used against us. Purdue, they saw that opening literally, and they took it for granted, and they pounced on their attackers or their defenders. You highlighted Anarchy, most likely won't be able to replicate his success from that ace, and Anarchy has been a stellar player, but he's started to go quiet in the latter parts of this round.
Yeah, since that ace, I think Anarchy hasn't actually found a single kill. And while one player is certainly not make or break for such a, strong team that their talent really does go quite deep, they are no doubt on the back foot here. Whatever formula that they were, working with before has just stopped working, because Purdue have done an excellent job of learning it. They've dotted their I's, crossed their T's, and now with match point on the horizon, they are looking as good and as aggressive as ever. These last few rounds, they have been able to take map control and get those early checklist steps done within the first minute of the round, which is not something that they were able to do in their attacking infancy. And those small changes, while they certainly don't make or break an entire round or an entire series, they certainly make an attack a lot easier, and they forced your defensive enemies to get a lot more smart with their plays, a lot more calculated in how they want to hold certain positions and how much effort they want to actually put in to holding any sort of extension. Because we've talked about how hit or miss, how high risk, high reward those extensions can be, every single gunfight you take has those considerations. And as Taco swings out here onto the player, that's Hangman pushing in from Kitchen. Nobody will emerge victorious out of that scuffle, but at least NCSU, they know roughly where Purdue are approaching from. The standard vertical pressure is being applied again.
Now, this is actually a small change for Purdue. Sure, it's still vertical pressure, but they're actually prioritizing the B bomb site instead of the A site. Now, this could have been a read from their drones that there was a lurking pressure from NC State downstairs, but it's not quite the hole that I wanted them to bring. Nonetheless, they did find that opening duel, so credit to them, and they're still trying to be basically as much of a pain as possible on the side of Purdue. They're flying around the map, and even their on-site pressure that's just kind of slightly off using long-ranged angles is in positions that can be almost impossible to push on through unless you expend utility. All the frag grenades from Purdue have been lost. They tried to Hail Mary them down that little, I guess that'd be like a drone vault up on the Cool Vibe stairs, and the kills still work back and forth, but it's NC State on top.
With the advantage now, or disadvantage, Providence is forced to get aggressive here and has no idea Drew is behind him. Here comes Drew on the swing, and the crossfire means the end of Providence. Despite the full flash, Smitty is going to push right on into the toxic smoke, and Taco and Anarchy collapse on the bomb site. They will take their victims, and they will take round 12 for NCSU. An excellent adaptation, and Chief, that means we've got overtime in map number 1.
And just a reminder, we don't do unlimited or infinite overtime. It's up to round 15, so the first team to win 2 total rounds is going to be the roster that finds themselves victorious on our first map. Again, that's Coastline in this best-of-5 series. Now, Purdue, they're going to be the ones starting on defense. Most teams would love to be on defense first, but since Coastline, this series has been attacker-sided, both attacking teams electing to go or taking 4-2 splits. So Purdue, they're going to have to do something that their opponents of NC State is not going to be prepared for. And actually, let's go back up one step to round 12 and talk about being prepared. NC State, they ran more or less the same strategy that they did in their previous Hookah defenses, and the change they made was kind of just running around the map haphazardly and just pure forms of chaos, and it worked to their credit. Now, it may have worked because Purdue also tried to change up their attack. They said, well, we've done the same thing 2 rounds in a row, or at least 2 attacks on Hookah in a row, so maybe we can find success if we do the B push. It didn't work for them, so when we do see Hookah again for NC State, we're going to have to see, are they again going to double down on this mentality of we're just going to be on site doing chaos, or is Purdue going to go back to the roots of what found them successful? And Jonah, I see another aggressive run out.
Yeah, the chaos that you mentioned, it may be coming into fruition immediately. Mila on the VIP balcony door, tempting a run out, but not going to go through with it. Couple of pre-fires there coming in from NC Jack and Taco, sensing that danger and dealing with it accordingly. But now they have got quite a task ahead of them. They still need to clear out this penthouse and VIP side of the map if they want to pressure from the 90 hall. In the form of Purdue defense, you still have some pressure from below as well. That comes in the form of Smitty, the player who's been dancing around Kitchen and Sunrise all day. Actually, we have three defenders hanging out below. That actually means, well, there's only 1 defender on the bomb site. Yeah, that's going to be laggers holding down the bomb site. Both bomb sites completely alone. You do have support from Smitty on the Cool Vibe stairs. And sure, you've got support from Hangman below in Office and 1 more downstairs in Sunrise. That's Providence. You've got all this support from elsewhere. But if NCSU just realized this could be big. Oh no, Mila with the run out. The info was there and the call went out. Unbelievable. Mila opens up the round with a dastardly, chaotic kill. NCSU now attacking on the back foot.
I have no idea how that run out actually worked. That's a run out that maybe works 1 of 100 times you attempt it. Was the default camera still up? Is that what prompted that run out? I mean, you can hear them on drone, but man, that's such a high risk strategy. I mean, to Purdue's credit, it worked for them, so I guess I can't be too critical of that. Now NC State on the attack. They've been so successful here, and you have to win your attacking rounds. We've seen this on Coast so many times, but they have to fight with a man disadvantage. They're still clearing out the entire map. They're going to use the majority of their drone economy that is still left to them. It's only 4, which means 40%. That's a dangerous position to be in, but since you're sub 60 seconds left on the clock, plus you have those Iona drones, not all is lost. You're just going to have to find that avenue back into the bomb site, and you're highlighting that the majority of Purdue was off-site. Well, they're starting to return back home.
Well, they have, except for the cheeky Mila holding down in offices, and guess what? A C4 in pocket. That could mean the end of this entire Aqua side attack if NCSU aren't careful, and the attack that they're looking to build. Actually, 2 defenders holding out below to deny this. Mila actively holding the vertical play, taking a couple of shots there, but not able to connect. C4 goes out, but no, it will not land. Instead, it's the toxic gas that deals the blow to NC Jack. Taco resumes the plant, but is absolutely denied. Mila, Providence, and Hangman go huge in the closing seconds, and Purdue with a flawless defensive round.
Joe, to refresh my memory, but that's the first flawless round that we've seen on this map, correct?
Yep.
See, and that just pans in or shows really what Purdue is capable of. Look at that defense. It was a masterclass. Anywhere that NC State decided to push on attack, there was a member of Purdue waving to them and shooting at them. That's what we need from NC State. Exactly what they need to basically reverse Uno card when they go over to Hookah. This is going to be the 4th showing for NC State on Hookah. And the crazy thing is, they've lost it 2 out of the 3 times. What are they going to do differently? I've made this point multiple times, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but at a certain time, you have to realize we are making mistakes. Have they truly corrected all the mistakes that they're making on Hookah? Well, the ball's in NC State's court. They have to prove to all of us that they're capable of making these corrections, because if they lose this round, map number 1 will go in favor of Purdue.
It's an interesting turn of events, Chief, because this was 4-2 attacker-sided on both halves. And I'm guessing if Purdue had been able to choose their overtime side after regulation had concluded, they would likely have chosen attack rather than defense because of their, lackluster defensive performances in that opening first 6 rounds. But despite that, they came out really strong in OT on their first defense, and I guess put the doubters to shame. That was the bomb site, the only bomb site they were able to lock down in the first half, and it's no surprise that they were able to do so again. NCSU could not quite replicate the same attacking success that they had found in the second round of the map. So now, the onus is on NCSU to answer back. They're moving on to the defensive side, and they are also electing to go with hookah and billiards. However, the big difference here in their defense to the defense of Purdue is we're not seeing much vertical extension whatsoever. That means, for Purdue's sake, that they are already downstairs, already in blue bar and offices, and have, free reign to begin the vertical control. Now, the one just masterful play that Purdue have had every single round, it's just been Mila on the double window rappel, locking this down and fragging out every single defender on each objective. Now, that is going to have to be what NCSU change in this round. They cannot all die to Mila again, because if they do, Purdue will have the bomb site for free.
I mean, you're 100% right with that. I mean, just look at the scoreboard right now. It's very one-sided. Purdue is winning just so many more of their gunfights. And even Laggers, he is contributing more than his scoreboard will ever say. Sure, he's negative by 2, but he's droning in Mila. He's providing Mila with more information, and we always say, oh, gun go Burr. 18 or 17 and 8. Mila is just so good at this game, but you also sometimes have to step back and say, how is Mila getting some of these kills? Great positioning on defense, but you also have to give credit to the flank watch, who's covering Mila's back, as well as the droners, who are actually providing Mila with that information. Purdue, no surprise, they're still going to continue on with that vertical play. NC Jack returns to his couch, where he's going to be tucked in nice and neatly as we dive some 60 seconds, what is starting to look like NC State's final round here on Coastline.
Certainly isn't over yet. They still have 50 seconds to hold off this push, and they aren't all bunched up in one particular position or another. They've got a good web of control still on this top floor that, if used well, could shut down an eventual push. The one presence that is lacking, however, is much in the way of any sort of default billiards plant denial. That's exactly what Laggers is going to go for here, sticking the plant now, seemingly getting it all the way down. The coverage from Mila is there once again. That's the end of Anarchy. Drew will find one on the luggage haul push, but now needs to find several more here. Rotating away, but focused on the air jab means Drew is no longer a factor in the round. Here come Taco and Predator. They've they've got to go for this retake, but it's Mila persisting on the rappel. Now a double kill. It's all up to Taco. NCSU's hopes on Coastline dwindling and nearly all gone. 15 seconds remain. Taco on the retake, but it is Mila again who just will not be felled. Purdue will close it out. A sweaty first map, but one that rounds it out with Purdue taking the win.
Well, Jonah, you said it so well when we were starting up not just this semifinals, but all the second semifinal we're going to see today, as well as that grand final. You said it's going to be close games. It's going to be teams bringing out 110% effort. And so far, you couldn't have been more right. I mean, just look at this brilliant showing that we had today. 8-6. I mean, both these teams are great. Now, again, Purdue, they seem to have the mastery, the strong understanding of this map. I'm no surprise there. They're the ones that elected to pick this map. And NC State, they stumbled a bit. They tripped, but, you know, this map is behind them. This could be their mulligan. They can just kind of correct their mistakes and move forward as they go into map number 2, which is going to be NC State's pick. That is Clubhouse.
Yeah, Clubhouse, I think, is the perfect battleground for NCSU to bring things back. It seems that their coastline prep, their willingness to go to one of Purdue's best maps in the entire pool, it did not quite work out at the end of the day, but like you said, a back-and-forth series the entire distance. We've got some highlights to take a look at, and like you said, we've got Clubhouse coming up next, but before then, a quick break. We'll be right back. Hello everyone, we're back and we've got some replays to take a look at from our previous series. At least, hopefully we do. Some crazy moments all around, and I mean, Chief, if that is the first map of the first of 3 best of 5s of the day, I think we all know what we're signing up for. It is going to be a fantastic day of Siege. Talk about the takeaways from that first map and what we can, look forward to on Clubhouse.
Honestly, the adaptability of both these rosters, we would see them kind of, piecing apart, just determining what their team was doing, what their opponents were doing, and creating those, quick second macro strategies on the fly, those changes. Where are we going to be pushing from? Oh, we're going to be flanking from this side of the map to apply this crossfire. And I expect we're going to see a little bit more of that because, again, people think Coastline has the map where, I don't need a strategy. I don't need an IGL. Gun go burr, I win gunfight. Easy as pie. But now, as we go into Clubhouse, a map that has undergone a few changes and hiccups here and there. And again, in T3, we have seen this map go attacker-sided. I believe some of the T1 casters were even talking about how Clubhouse, maybe not officially attacker-sided yet, but it's going to a position where it's going to be pretty common to see 3-3 splits on attack and defense. So that's going to apply a lot more pressure to these rosters when they go to attack, because what are you going to do? You're trying to grab as many of those rounds as possible, and how are you going to be successful?
Well, Chief, I love the point you brought up, and I'm going to double down on, Clubhouse in its very nature is one of the most strat-focused maps in the entire game, right? And coming off the least strat-focused map in the entire game, I mean, we are definitely in for a very different vibe from both of these teams, and we're going to have to see how they develop and how they morph into a Clubhouse team instead. Because what makes a Coastline team successful? Your fragging ability, your ability to make crazy aggressive decisions on the fly. Clubhouse, it has no part in that kind of mentality. In Clubhouse, one piece of utility utilized at the right moment can make or break the round for your entire team. That just comes down to it when you get these 20-second executes on Arsenal. That's kind of how it goes. If you connect the C4 as a defender, you've won the round, and if you miss, you die and you lose the round. That is how tightly this map can be played, and the way that these two teams were bringing out Coastline, even on a frag-heavy map, they were really running with these composed default strategies. I really do think we're in for a show on Clubhouse.
Starting off in our ban phase, most likely we're going to see the Thatcher fall, and then it kind of comes down to who do you want to remove? Is it going to be that Maverick that can draw lines in your wall and just basically shut down all that reinforcement, or are you going to remove the Hibana, an operator that plays very similar, but again, she is the queen of those top hatches. She can now do 1x2 configurations, bypass any type of impact tricking you elect to bring out, and there she is, Hibana off the board. Now both attacking squads will have access to that Maverick, which will allow them to open up walls relatively quickly, and you also don't need to ban out Kaid, but a smoke ban. I love smoke bans simply because every team under the sun has a smoke player strategy with a deployable shield doing the same thing over and over again since Year 1, Season 1. Those default strategies have been torn out of the book by one ban.
If I'm Purdue right now and I just watched NC State ban out the smoke, I am terrified. I'm sure you could have prepped for that one, but really? You're going to prep for a smoke ban? How is that going to go into your pre-map action? I mean, I really have no idea. I mean, that is as NCSU as a ban will ever be. They brought this out one other time in a game I've casted, and they are the only collegiate team I've ever seen to do this. The time I've seen this before, it was on Oregon. The smoke ban came out. We were sitting here in the booth going, what in the world are we supposed to expect now? But what NCSU did is they put on a 20-second execute clinic because they didn't have to deal with those toxic canisters anymore. They had the site completely under control the moment that they chose to say 3, 2, 1, go. They spent the mid round. They spent a minute 30 just sitting back on their drones, getting information, waiting for that push to come through. And once they decided to make the execute happen, it was just decisive and they took round after round after round if there wasn't a smoke on the board. Now, Purdue, they are certainly a high caliber of an opponent, and will definitely find a way to make those adaptations. I mean, you slap a Malusi in play, and you've got that time waste that the smoke has. You've got 3 C4s in this case, and you've got so much of that plant denial that the smoke has as well. So it's definitely going to be a bit back and forth, but Purdue are no doubt forced to bring out a little bit more of that utility that they can't have with the smoke out of this fight.
And I wonder what operator that they've elected to bring instead of that smoke. You can just point fingers, oh, well, the mute, he has a shotgun as well, he opens up walls, that's going to be an easy transition. But since you have, well, one of your best deniers, 30 seconds of time wasting removed, you have to, again, get creative. You're talking about nitrocells, but information is also one of the best ways at delaying time. If you have information as a defender, that means you can take gunfights that you have no business taking. Because maybe that 50-50 face check swing now becomes an 80-20 gunfight in your favor because you have that red ping, you have that yellow ping, and also with mute on the board, that's going to, well, extremely hinder NC State as they start to take this map control, because they're going to find themselves in a small roadblock. They're going to find themselves with a Mozzie Pest in front of them, that mute jammer, unable to clear out the map. Taco gets on his drone in a very bad position. Bullets was over his face, but somehow none of them collect him. That could have been a huge error. And Purdue, they know he's now there, and they're just going to continue to fall back and waste time.
Yeah, the time waste so far has been quite effective. That's 90 seconds now burned off the clock. And now that Purdue have fallen back to the site, at least for the most part, now it's just a waiting game for an eventual execute. NCSU, they're starting to mount pressure from just about everywhere. You've got the Selma charges detonating on that Moto hatch, so you've got your angle of approach from there. The one thing that hasn't been touched yet, however, is the kitchen hatch, and Taco only having one of those Selmas left. That one is going to be thrown down on the dirt tunnel. It may have to be NC Jack who rotates around and deals with that hatch instead. In the meantime, you've got Predator approaching from Oil Pit here in Garage. They're spreading their wings here. They've got their net over this entire objective, and it's just about doing something with it. Drew will not be able to establish any more vertical play, as a nice C4 from Mila will mark the end of the Sledge's life.
Yeah, NC State is in a dark position. NC Jack, he's going to have to open up this hatch with a thermomite charge. But where is he going to do that? There's no safe place for him at all. He's going to have his feet removed from a nitrocell and bullets whizzing up through the ground. But somehow, Laggers, who is tasked with holding that, he has now lost his life. 15 seconds left on the clock. It's going to be a slaughter on the bomb site, but it's NC State. They start to flood on through. They have control. It's a 2v4, and everybody from Purdue is starting to drop. Hangman was upstairs, forced to rotate back. He's going to try to utilize the hatch as his avenue back, but Anarchy is sitting there welcoming him to the grave. A great read and a great round by NC State.
Well, Chief, I've got to say that was pretty typical NC State attack right there. It was exactly what we predicted. I mean, they waited till the last possible moment to push that site, and it was looking bad for them, right? If you're an outside, viewer and you're going, I've never seen NCSU attack before, that is it right there. And it was a clinic. That is a textbook 20-second execute if I've ever seen one. I mean, they looked like they were on the back foot. They had no time. They had no sight control. They were losing health. They were losing operators left and right. But it did not matter. They didn't seem to care. When it came down to it, Taco was in the middle of the objective. You had the blue pressure mountain. You had the drop from the kitchen hatch. You had the vertical coverage there as well. Every single box was checked. And NCSU just rolled ahead and took that round. Purdue, no doubt, reeling from the shocking turn of events.
And you can even see Purdue, once they realize that they're in a bad position, they doubled down or tripled and quadrupled down on that nitrocell play. They decided to just Hail Mary all that utility, but they didn't know exactly where NC State was pushing from, because NC State was pushing from everywhere. It was just craziness on that bomb site. And it seems like Purdue has realized one of those positions that they found as a weakness was that hatch. Again, they're trying to deny through nitrocells, but they're going to now bring an extra bit of utility to hopefully guarantee that that B bomb hatch will not be opened up. It is going to be impact tricking. We're highlighting how Hibana and why Hibana was banned earlier on. Well, it's impossible to impact trick. You could still do it. It's just because I guess there's a small window where you can be successful. That kind of requires Hibana to make the mistake. And well, at this level, players are so good, they very rarely make the mistake. Again, it's a Hail Mary style of play. So if you want a successful impact trick, you remove Hibana, you force a Thermite in play, and now that big charge of that Thermite, it's pretty much guaranteed to be destroyed by one of those explosive devices.
Well, on the side of NCSU, I think they've definitely recognized that, and that's why we're seeing the triple hard breach coming out from NCSU, the Thermite, the Maverick, and the Ace. So you've got so many fallback plans just in case of, like you said, an impact trick or one of those operators is taken out a bit earlier than they would have liked. But in terms of overall timing, I mean, this round is no different than the previous. We're on the basement bomb site. NCSU, their job is to just take map control from the top down. And they've done so, successfully forcing Purdue back to the objective itself. No early challenges, no early aggression coming out from Purdue, but what they have done is they've taken care of 4 of the drones off the board. So they've made a good bit of progress in their own right at removing a little bit of this information game from NC State, the game that they rely on when it comes to these pushes. There goes the Moto hatch now that the Selma charges have detonated, and once again, finally working their way onto this first floor, the vertical play and the pressure onto these hatches is finally beginning.
So I need Predator to rotate sooner rather than later. Why? To stop Drew from dying in that position. What they should have done is you bring over your Ashe, and she crouches on any of those walls. It really doesn't matter. And you put your breaching charge there, and it opens up. It's a circle explosion, which means you can grab, well, a huge amount of soft destruction. That way you can inhibit pretty much the majority of the rotation from Purdue and stop Nitrocell kills like that. Then you rotate your sledge on over, he begins his reconstruction of the bomb site, and then you can start to have NC Jack open up this hatch. That mistake may have cost them one of their best fraggers. Drew's going to start to remove that hatch, and is this going to be a hot drop? It looked like it for a second, but they have to start to find their execute quickly. There's only 15 seconds left on the clock. Providence knows this all too well. He's going to impact trick that away, and members of NC State, they're starting to fall. Their 20-second execute, it's not working out at all. 2 lone hard breachers against the world. One of them's going to fall. NC Jack unable to find the kills, and a flawless round for Purdue.
It's amazing how the 20-second meta, or at least those last-second pushes, they can be as equally unforgiving as they can be powerful. And we saw it on full display there. The impact tricking, or lack thereof, in round number 1, it was a completely different story in round number 2. We saw the 2 exothermic charges go down on that hatch, and despite a valiant effort from those 2 players above the kitchen hatch to flash out the Malusi and prevent those impacts from landing, it would not be the case. The exothermic charges were denied, the kitchen drop was denied, and that was exactly what NC State needed in the previous round and what they needed in this one if they wanted to pull it out. And so because of that one, they are not going to be able to take their round in the same fashion that they were before. Now the score equalizing at 1-1. But Purdue now, despite not having a smoke on the board, this is a team very comfortable with pulling out the clash. Hangman is going to do so, and on this objective, the clash can really be a huge operator for your denial of any sort of push. Of course, walking into a crossfire is surely the last thing a clash will ever do, but if you can play this bomb site right, if you can funnel the attackers into one direction or another, and once you realize you have a one-sided push on your hands as a defense, you call for the clash. You slap her right in the middle of a doorway, you're gaining that intel, and you're denying that push, a single brick wall standing between the attackers and that objective.
And what makes that storyline even more sweet, Jonah, is you're going to be putting that clash over in Rafters. And why that's a big deal is no Zofia on the board, no Callie on the board. Even if they were up and active for NC State, you wouldn't be able to kill that clash because you stun lock her, for example, or you hit her with a bolt-action sniper rifle, and that shield, it's going to fly. But if you're playing R1, R2, or R90, which is all in rafters, that shield is going to fly, but the feet will not be exposed. And again, what makes rafters so lethal for defenders is the ability for the attackers to do a multi-pronged assault, pushing in from the east garage door, pushing in from lounge, stock, as well as the east main breach. As soon as you open up, there are 4 potential crossfires. But when you have a bulletproof shield in front of you, those crossfires are meaningless because they can't kill you. It's just pure information. And as you said, a good read from Purdue. And they're going to have to just continue on this mentality. And what is NC State going to do to break this down? Well, they're going to bring out their own multi-pronged assault, but it's going to be from the east and west.
Well, there's one thing we actually haven't mentioned yet, Chief. It's the Frost in play coming out from Smitty. Now, most teams would not dare to pull out the bear traps on CCTV and Cash, usually reserving the Frost, at least on Clubhouse, for the tertiary bomb site of gym and bedroom. But Purdue, they seem to be stuck in their ways here. And, well, Laggards will be stuck in the middle of the objective, and Pred will do a good job at punishing that. The next player standing between Pred and this execute, that's Providence, whose toes are nearly getting taken off there. And with 1 HP, it's so dangerous. There it goes, the double kill from Pred onto the pinky toe of the Wamai. And that's going to put Purdue on the back foot, no doubt. And with a clash in play, without the man advantage, you've only got one option. Now it's whip out that pocket F2 and hope that your Clash player can frag out. Now, a formidable weapon, to be sure, but when you're coming up against some rifles and a Maverick just popping up in front of you, a dangerous position to say the least. There goes Anarchy. He'll get one. Mila does answer back to keep things in a 2v4 situation, but now with the bomb going down, Mila and Smitty, they need to get this retake going. Mila rounds the corner. That's going to get shut down by Drew, and Smitty on the top of red stairs is the last player to pull this one back. Knows the position of Pred, and with Taco on the ground, it's only a 1v3, but oh, here comes Pred. Actually going to get aggressive. Smitty punishes. Now on the swing, looking behind green box, can't find a player there because they're crouched in wait. NC Jack gets aggressive, not waiting any longer, and that means it's a 1v1. Drew now needs to be careful because if Smitty teases this diffuser, the sledge will have to spring into action. But Smitty only on 1 HP here, just one bullet from the sledge would mean the end of the Frost. As a result, Smitty's going to go aggressive, walking right into Drew's crosshair. And NCSU will recover the round, a near disaster in the last few moments, but they will take their attacking round 3.
And again, returning to the point that we were talking about, why CCTV as well as all of Clubhouse can be attacker-sided. I mean, just look at the execute from NC State. They open up the East Breach, they relocate the majority of their attacking force over to the West, and they basically repeat that first step. They start to hard breach new walls, the construction wall, they start to apply crossfires, and you as a defender can't sit still in that bomb site. You're pretty much on an island by yourself, and Purdue, they did a great job in their strategy, and why they lost the round wasn't based off the strat problem. It was based off kind of just, I guess, the structural element of the bomb site. So Purdue, in the future, maybe play a little bit more aggressive, trying to snipe away one of those drones on the extension to the west. Now that's 10% of that drone economy off the board, and then start to retreat in what I call stages. I believe some of the other jargony terms for that type of roam is like the active roam, where, again, you snipe away a drone in a door frame and you walk your way back to that bomb site. But also, I have to be a little critical of NC State. They had the post plant, they had the majority of the man count, and they started to throw bodies at the problem. When you're in a post plant, you have to hold with the positional, and you can't kind of get greedy and just say, oh, the last player's alive, mine, and just take gunfights because, well, the option is losing those gunfights, and we saw that come way too close. A 1v1 post plant with 25 seconds left on the clock is far too winnable for the defense when you enter that in a 3v1.
Well, in the third round, or in the second round rather, we did see Purdue play the same bomb site again, but they found success on Church and Arsenal, but making a couple of adjustments. And we are going to see quite a few adjustments in this round. We're not going to see the Frost in play, nor are we seeing the Clash. Instead, Purdue will resign to a little bit more of a typical setup. They're putting Smitty on the Rook, which is a little bit more unorthodox, but without a smoke, you're just looking for a player who can sit somewhere and gun. And if you're going to give him a 2-time scope, and you're going to give Smitty a 2-time scope, you know, those things can be justified. Plus, you've got a little bit of Rook armor to boot, and who will say no to an extra bit of health? You do have a little bit of a roam coming out from Purdue this time around as well. You've got Mila and Providence, both playing below. Providence is no doubt switching off the Wamai, not interested in getting his toes shot off again after he was on 1 HP. So adjusting onto the Melusi, bringing those Wubs into play, and that will, I guess, be Purdue's hope at shutting down any early aggression coming out from NCSU. But Chief, if there's anything we've learned, early aggression and NCSU, they are surely not synonymous with one another. NCSU, they definitely like to wait for these last-second takes.
Hangman still isolated over on Rafters, but he has built himself quite a fortress here. He has Jaeger he has all 4 of his One My Pancakes pre-placed, so if NC State starts to burn utility his direction, he's going to be sitting quite comfortable. But he has that long angle, and it might not be quite enough to hold off anything. What is going to be the critical aspect for Purdue are going to be those impact grenades and tricking that hard breach utility. NC Jack is going to be on the bad end of that. One of his hard breach charges has been removed, but he still has more. And even if it gets tricked one more time, you can still bring in the Maverick. Anarchy has barely used any of his torches. He's actually kind of acting as a pseudo hard breacher, more like a Thatcher, opening up the walls but not actively tricking it with his gadget. And Goosemity, that 2-time sight that you're highlighting, it's going to open up the doors perfectly wide. And NC State forced to fight the remaining 30 seconds with a man disadvantage that's getting even worse. Goose Smitty down a triple kill, but finished off. The diffuser was surrendered over towards the west, forced to be retrieved by Drew, and it's going to be on NC State. They have to flood their bomb sites. Their crossfires are working out well. Taco's going to find himself too. Now 1v2. Where's the final remaining member? It's Providence underneath, denying with the Nitrocell, and diffuser once again on an island. Red ping's coming out, but it's so little time left. Taco has to take the gunfight, but he won't line up his shots. And the clock hits 0-0. Purdue wins the round off time.
Once again, NCSU, the time which they love to work with and they love to use to their most advantage possible, will be the bane of their round and will result in another round loss. That one, again, was another back and forth scuffle in those last few moments, but this time the time ran out just before Taco could get that plant down, and had to make a decision, and an impossible one at that. It was, with 1 second on the clock, it was a lose-lose situation, because you had Providence coming up from below. Would have been a free denial of the plant. If the timer was at 000s, then it would have been a round for Purdue anyway. So Taco thinking that, you know what, Providence is pushing up those stairs, just full running in expectation of denying the plant. Maybe a pre-fire with the AK-12 on the top of the red stairs would be the perfect formula was for success, but the timing was about 1 second off, and Purdue will take the round. So an excellent adjustment once again, and we're continuing this back and forth pattern of Clubhouse. But NCSU are looking pretty strong here. This map has always been considered defensive-sided, and while the meta is certainly going more in the favor of attackers, and this map has seen a lot more of that 3-3 even split, I would argue that Purdue definitely should emerge with 3 or 4 rounds minimum out of this half, at least if they were to consider it successful. And for NC State, 2 rounds under their belt, that is the minimum number of rounds, but it's also enough to make them feel comfortable that no matter how these next 2 rounds transpire, they will be good moving into their own defensive half with a little bit of an edge at least.
So as you mentioned earlier, we would see NC State win the first round on a bomb site. Purdue would answer it back. This is the first time we're going to see a bomb site for the 3rd time. And it's really anyone's game who is going to be victorious. And I have to say, I like what Purdue is bringing out right now. Hangman is doing a very simple strategy. He's looking for the duel, but more importantly, it's again that active style of roam, or that staged roam. He's already sniped away a drone, and the pressure he's making without doing much of anything is incredible. I mean, NC State is still trying to exactly identify where he is. They've committed 20% of that drone economy to deal with him, and now he's rotated back to the bomb site. 60 seconds wasted for free, and that's exactly what you want to have when you're a defender. But also on the other side of the coin, you have to be very careful how you're rotating actually in your buffer rooms, because we've seen how good Predator is, and he's just evolving into a monster.
Yeah, Pred finding their 4th kill of this round, and now joining the rest of NC State in mounting the pressure from this blue side. They've now got the stock hatch open and the moto hatch as well. So this pressure is, I'd argue, a little bit quicker than before. NCSU, they've realized that the previous round, the biggest problem was the timer, and they're going to be looking to rectify those issues by getting their clear done with a little bit more pace. The one thing they really need to worry about now is the C4 lying in wait just beside this kitchen hatch. That's actually going to be detonated a bit early, I think. Ooh, that's not what NCSU, or rather Purdue, were looking to do there. Hangman wasting that C4 early on. Laggers now the only vertical C4 remaining. Oh, but this is a pretty solid camera here. Hangman knows exactly what they're dealing with on this oil-sided push, and here comes Smitty to capitalize, despite Predator being a little bit sus that there was possibly a player creeping on in from Lounge. Smitty will be credited with the kill anyway. And now that 30-second mark upon us, this kitchen hatch not opened wide, and Providence with 2 impact tricks still, impact grenades still in pocket. This impact trick could very well be the end of this attack.
There's the impact trick. There's a heart breacher gone. So much resources from NC State is put on this west hatch. All 4 of them are there. The impact grenade is going to go out once again, but Anarchy will get that kill. The hatch, it hasn't been destroyed. It's a full send to the bomb site. It's pure chaos, and Purdue is going to be the winner of these exchanges as they light the scoreboard up. They all start to find kills, and you keep bringing us back to the 20-second meta. The full send executes. It's worked twice for NC State, but this time they're putting too many eggs in one basket, or as I guess you would say, apples.
That's a solid callback, Chief. You're probably waiting to use that one for quite a while, but excellent job there, and excellent job to Purdue as well. They've clearly noticed what they're dealing with. They clearly understand how NC State want to approach these attacking rounds, and at least for the most part, they've done a great job of using that understanding to collect some round wins. Every time they've seen an attack once, they've adjusted, and they've won the round after that. The first and the second round, the same pattern continued. The third and fourth round again, and even though they were looking a little bit worse off in round number 5, they still made it happen because that impact trick coming out from Providence was enough time waste and enough utility waste to pretty much end NCSU's hopes in taking that attacking win. And despite knowing how strong, and seeing in this map even, how strong the NC State last-second executes can work, it is time for a change, I think, Chief. I mean, all they have to do is just speed up their map clear, and then they can take up the same amount of time on the information phase and on the eventual planning of the execute, getting their players in position and actually getting it done. Unfortunately for them, that pace has not quickened enough to make a difference when it comes to dealing with the utility that Purdue are waiting to use until the last second. The big brains of Purdue, and Providence specifically here, is on full display because they have countered the NCSU strategy to a T, and without a smoke, to be fair.
Well, this is a different style of defense for Purdue. Most defensive teams are electing to make head level or crouch level holes in the wall between cache and through construction. Instead, they've elected to go for these feet holes. And I'm not sure if this is going to provide them with the exact same, well, style of play that they want, because the idea behind that is to have a long line of sight all the way into the west to deny entry in through those windows. But on the prone angle, you're going to find yourself, well, shooting the bed. That's why you, at minimum, you put them at crouch level, so if somebody vaults in from any of those highway windows, you can see them. But on the prone, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to do. And also, when you're prone in that position, you're exposed to the drone hole behind you. Providence is going to find himself in a very awkward position. The majority of his HP has been lost as from a frag grenade from underneath, and one bullet will be his undoing. Drew gets extremely aggressive up the Ren stairs, winning his gunfight. Goose Smitty didn't even hear that push come at all, and NC State, they have a lot of control of the East, but they still need to deal with Providence.
Thankfully for them, they only have to breathe on the Wamai, and 1 HP is certainly going to be his end. This frag grenade could be as well. Drew cooking it up, tossing it through the drone hole, and there's the double kill for the Sledge. So an excellent job from NC State at dealing with that extension, but here comes Mila, now a double kill of his own on the flank. An excellent play, but Anarchy is there to respond in kind. So NCSU, despite a near disaster unfolding on the east side of this top floor, they will recover and they will maintain the man advantage. That final pocket reinforcement being deployed, that one by Laggers over on the bathroom wall. A good application of utility there because a lack of manpower means that they really can't hold that site down, or at least this position down as strongly. However, it does mean Hangman is in an awkward position. There's no way for the Frost to rotate back in through the site. Taco capitalizes and says goodnight to Hangman. Here comes Laggers, but Taco lines up the double kill, and NC State will roll through that defense with relative ease, recovering an attacking round of their own and keeping us even, a 3-3 split at the half.
On paper, I actually like both teams' executes. I like how we see Purdue, their extension into the cache side of the map, their hold of the red stairs. Now, sure, Gooseman never pulled the trigger, but maybe he was just caught off guard. Mistakes happen. I think that was the position that they just weren't quite prepared for. And even Providence, on his so little HP, he still wasted time until finished off by that frag. And you can see that Providence or Purdue realized, oh no, we've lost our east. This is going to be a critical area for us to hold. We're going to retake that. To their credit, they did that, and also to NC State's credit, they countered that perfectly, guaranteeing those refrags back and forth. If we see more rounds from like round 6 that we just had, this series is probably guaranteed to go the distance. I mean, look at how even they are in map 2. 3-3 split, we said was probably going to be common, but again, I'm expecting OT at this point.
I'm going to have to second that prediction, Chief, but, don't want to put any sort of caster curse on either team if the scoreline goes one way or another. As, NCSU, they're poised in a position to really get a couple of rounds here. Now they're on defense on their own map pick and a map that they prepared to not have to bring a smoke in play. So they've got a lineup ready to deal with, and Purdue likely had to make some more changes on the fly that they didn't come into this map prepared for. Now, NCSU on their defensive side, they'll be bringing out the Goyo, so that's not something that we saw Purdue bring a lot of, but for the most part, this is your pretty standard lineup as well. It was interesting to see Purdue avoid the Maestro for the most part. They were bringing out, the Valkyrie, even a Frost in place of those Evil Eyes and those impact grenades. And it's interesting, and it honestly did work out pretty well for Purdue here, but Anarchy will be looking to change things up and bring out that support operator that he loves so much. But what we're seeing right now from NC State is a pretty strong effort at locking down this breach for a while, right? You're allowing the Maverick trick to go down because there's pretty much nothing you can do to stop it, but we see one player, that's Pred, hanging below in secret to shut down any Purdue attacker who would be willing to walk into Lounge and is eager to apply vertical play either onto CCTV or onto cache. But with the breach now open, the Maverick trick successful, Hangman will just rappel on the platform and cover any rotations in the bomb site.
Now we're have to look to Purdue. Where are they going to push from? We always see a crossfire start to be established, but again, the big question is from where? Right now with Purdue, with 3 of their roster count over in the garage side, that's going to be their place to push. Frags go back and forth. Drew was tasked with holding that for as long as possible. He'll take a member down of Purdue before he falls, and both teams forced to continue to fight this out, but with some of their best operators off the board. Now, if we're looking at the Jaeger trade for the Sledge, well, it's always going to be the better trade when you take out a set of frag grenades. Frags are always going to be that push you have to soften up that defense, particularly when you have those Goyo shields in play. A well-placed frag grenade will destroy the Goyo shield as well as make that fire start to propagate, and you can almost guarantee if there's a defender sitting too close to that, they will end up losing their life. But Purdue, they answer back those kills with the kill of their own. Now that's Predator off the board.
Laggers had the patience to just sit outside there by the bikes, just hold down that bar double door for seemingly eternity, and That's going to net them the kill, so an excellent use of time there from Purdue. They'll get that kill onto Predator, who will no longer be able to use that C4 from below. And as a result, Providence is now going to get the plant down, and nothing is there to stop him. NC Jack switching guns at the wrong moment, falling to laggers, and Taco falls to Hangman as well, and Providence rolls on up in the site, cuts down Anarchy to give Purdue the first attacking round, a swift one at that.
The power of the crossfires can just be so oppressive to the defense. I mean, you're sitting back in your hiding hole, your defensive strategy, and there's an attacker holding an angle that you just can't challenge. And at the end of the day, Purdue read into the defense perfectly. They took control of the avenues that they needed, particularly that Rafters. Taking those trains back and forth was everything that they needed to do to set up those long lines of sight. They continue with that drone economy where they say, oh, hey, everybody's over in cash box from the red stairs. This is a free plant, because even if they start to chuck utility downrange, well, the likelihood of it landing is going to be, well, pretty much non-existent. Again, NC State, on defense, they said, we don't want smoke and play. We're going to ban that. But that style of attack from Purdue, it could have been countered by a smoke.
Here's something fun. NC Jack is pulling out the Echo. The Yokai drones could be considered a replacement for the smoke canisters. You've got that time waste. You've got that plant denial. Plus, you've got a bit of an information game to add to that as well. With the Yokai drones change, though, that has been seen in the last few patches ago, they're now visible. So you can't just put them in the middle of the ceiling and hope that the attackers just aren't going to look up after you zap them and get that drunk effect all over their screen. Now, the play with an Echo drone is you got to tuck them into more hidden positions where you can't gain a lot of intel, but use them solely for plant denial instead. And that's probably what we're going to see here from NC Jack, and that is going to likely be a key factor of this round. But time waste, that's going to be a factor as well. We're already seeing Purdue get this map clear going, and Taco is the one player standing in their way. Purdue, they seem to know this is a drone at Hangman's feet, but it doesn't matter. Taco's going to get the kill anyway, holding down this position and cutting down one of the most important players on this attack. You've lost your Zofia, you've lost Hangman, and now you still have the responsibility of clearing out this Jaeger.
I have to be critical of Providence there, the IGL. He identified the offsite pressure, and he just haphazardly starts to clear it. You need to deal with this mini game. It's been dealt with by Goose Mini, but at the cost of two attackers. When you're an IGL and you see offsite pressure, you have it droned out, your option is to say, hey, we need to, again, apply a crossfire. That's why we were successful in round 7. Let's use that mentality to deal with it. I mean, look at NC State. They're in a perfect position. They have a positive man count by +2. And Purdue, they are struggling in this round. Again, the IGL needs to have that overarching strategy. And when things don't go the way they expect, because let's be honest, you can have the best attacking strategy on paper and it'll never go down the exact way you wanted, you have to have that contingency plan in mind. You have to be prepared for it. And right now, Purdue, they never really reacted. They just kind of continued in on that same train of thought that they had at the start of this round. Providence, though, working his way down the secret stairs. He's in quite a crossfire himself, being challenged by 3 different members of NC State. He's going to call in for some additional reinforcement, Goose Smitty, but sitting on below 25 HP can be quite a dangerous position to be in.
Can also be dangerous to walk into a crossfire. That's exactly what Providence will do, and it's exactly why Pred goes for the swing and nets the kill for NCSU. It's Smitty with 25 HP left to pull this one out in a 1v4, a near impossible situation, especially given that NC State, they have no desire to get over aggressive here. They're going to sit back, they're going to play this passive, and they're going to wait for Smitty to walk on through. I believe Smitty is going to resign, send a smiley face, sending good vibes downrange, but I don't believe any kills will be sent downrange instead. The Yokai drone just kind of, another one now actually may be thrown up there. No, NC Jack's just going to hang out on the bomb site, but this right here is a round for NC State. An excellent job at playing aggressive, at just contesting those attackers the moment they entered the building, and that's why they took this round, no doubt.
Yeah, it's all just kind of throwing cannon fodder downrange. Anarchy's going to fall. He gets aggressive, but it really didn't matter. He wanted to pad his stance. I guess he will to a certain extent with a death. And, as you said it best, a great read by NC State, a good roam, but I was critical of Purdue for not really identifying what the offsite pressure was. And everybody loves to point fingers at one particular strategy. It always happens to be on Clubhouse, the SSG-style roam or a derivative of that. And what we saw today from NC State, that wasn't anywhere close to an SSG roam or anything like that. It was just offsite pressure, a solo roamer with no real utility on an island by himself, able to take 2 kills. That is a mistake that should never be made. And again, I hate to point fingers, but it's always on the IGL to orchestrate strategies like that, coordinate the pressure. And, when you're an entry IGL, like we see a lot in Collegiate, you can say, oh, hey, I have this mini game in front of me directly. I need help. The secondary entry come over and help me. But Providence was, I guess, the primary droner in that aspect. He had just as much information as his primary entries. And again, just rotate that secondary over and you guarantee that refrag.
I just took a look at the scoreboard here, Chief. Smitty has 13 kills.
Yep.
I mean, wow. Smitty has been lighting up the scoreboard. A switch over from CSGO. Former CSGO player, pretty talented there as well, but coming over to Rainbow Six and tearing it up here. Very, very impressive stuff from the Ash Jaeger main. And that's really what Purdue have been relying on so far. On the side of NC State, you've got the kills a little bit more spread around, but it's Taco at the helm of the fragging game with NC Jack. Unfortunately, hasn't been able to find a single kill in this map so far. So similar storylines playing out for both teams here. And I think that because of that, they're also running with similar expectations about how each round is going to unfold. And I'll throw another theory into the mix about why that previous round didn't go so well for Purdue. NC State have very rarely put a lot of aggressive roamers on the battlefield. They haven't been putting these early extended players challenging onto the attackers the moment they enter the building. And if you go through, 14 rounds on the first map and then 8 rounds on the second without dealing with much of that aggressive roam, it's no surprise that your expectations and maybe your tight droning ability is going to become a little bit lackluster. And thankfully for Purdue, they've realized what can happen if they make those mistakes, and they're already cleaning it up. They identified the position of Taco perfectly. They cut him down at 25 HP, and now he's being fully pressured out of this. You don't want your Maestro to be dying here, and somehow Taco is going to be able to escape with their life. An interesting decision not to pop the castle barricade until just now. That's going to give Taco a second chance at life and a second chance at influencing this round.
No, I agree with you 100%. That first priority for Purdue should have been opening up that castle barricade because you guarantee the refrag or the prevention of the rotate altogether. That mistake was made, and now Purdue, they're going to have to suffer those consequences. But to their credit, they have full control of the east side of the map. They just start to rotate their attackers on over to the west. You open up that spa wall, and once again, your 180-degree crossfire is in full effect. Now, NCSU, they're in a dangerous position. They have a large amount of their man count over by the Logi hatch. That can be quite dangerous as you can't rotate there safely. It's kind of an island of no man's land, and Taco's going to be droned out there as well. Now, the silver line to this is Drew is underneath on a prone angle where he can take those gunfights. It is pandemonium in the bomb site as everybody's going to start to find their kills, but 3-3 apiece as we find ourselves in the Doomsday Hour.
Well, NC Jack lines up one. Anarchy whips out the MP7 and gets another. That leaves Smitty alone to clutch this one up to win this round. He's going to find 16 kills instead of just 13. There's one. 2 more are needed to find, but Anarchy, the prone angle with the MP7, that's not what Smitty was expecting. And NC State, they hop over to the gym and bedroom bomb site rather than going to CCTV, a decision that not many teams would have the courage to make, but a decision that now gives NC State the round and now the edge in the map.
You know what point I'm about to make, Jonah, because I made it 1,000 times. What did I just see that makes me want to rip my hair out? As an entry fragger holding W and shift at the same time. And the worst part was Goose Smitty actually lined up his ADSs on the head of the bandit prone. If he wasn't sprinting, he would have won that gunfight. Hands down. Or at least he would have been able to pull the trigger and most likely collecting the head. You don't know about hit reg since we're, not in a LAN environment, but he would have been at least able to take that duel. I know everybody wants to cross the map in quick fashion. You don't want to get caught on that crossfire. Maybe there's somebody, you know, who might swing you from gym bedroom, for example, over by the spa wall. But, I mean, the opportunity cost of not sprinting in that case is taking that gunfight, because that gunfight would have guaranteed to happen. Again, it's small, nuanced things, and you kind of have to, you know, analyze yourself, coach yourself to say, maybe I should rip out my shift key. And again, if you know me as a caster, that is my favorite point to make, that you should never be sprinting inside the map. I'm sure you could make an argument, oh yeah, in this scenario you totally can, but it seems to have cost far more players in Collegiate their lives than it probably should.
Well, definitely NCSU are happy that Smitty made that mistake, because as we all have seen so far this map, the all-aim style gunplay that Smitty has been bringing out has certainly been working for Purdue, and has definitely not been what NCSU have been enjoying, at least on their defensive side so far. Taking that round, though, that gives them the edge, and it allows them to head back to CCTV and Cash, because, as I highlighted already, they chose to go to that tertiary bomb site a little bit earlier than expected. So definitely an interesting decision there, one that paid off, and now that could pay in dividends going forward, now that they're heading back to probably a more comfortable bomb site. The one danger, Purdue were very clean on this site last time. They had a very clean rafters take, a very clean push in to that default plant spot, something that Pred, now their goal is to deny this outright. Last time it was the same play from below, but Pred was caught out and sent to the grave a lot earlier than NCSU would have liked, and that is exactly what resulted in Purdue being able to get that plant down and actually take that round so easily here. But the difference now is we're seeing a lot more pressure down on this first floor. Instead, you've got Taco joining Pred here on the top of Secret Stairs, eyes on the bar double door, careful of, who is that, Laggers? No, it's Providence, who's working their way in, just trying to cut off any possible rotations up towards the red stairs.
And see, this is why I like teams to open up multiple avenues into a bomb site. Let's say you open up construction right now. Well, now you can say, you know, we don't need to take all the way over to the south side of the map and garage, because we have a different way of setting up for crossfire. But you can also keep in mind, we have a Capital in play with no Wamai on the board. Drew's in a dangerous spot. He can be flamed out, and he will be flamed out, forced to rotate away from R1 and 2, and more firebolts catching him out on the window. He loses his life, and that fast execute that Purdue likes on CCTV and is back in full force. But fortunately for Taco, he's able to get that refrag, taking a lot of damage towards Hangman, and now the gig is up for NC State. Their vertical nitro cells, if they want to keep that strategy, they're going to have to rotate them from the other side of the map, but it's a 1v4 and NC Jack. He has found the scoreboard. He's sitting on that breadstick, but he's going to have to find 4 if he wants to be successful in round 10.
He's got the red pings, he's got the information, he knows where the push is coming from, but simply that is not enough. SMG-11 was not even able to fire 1 bullet before Hangman sends NC Jack to his early grave and sends Purdue to another CCTV and Cash successful attack. This one, a bit of a more messy beginning, because NCSU had a better idea of how Purdue wanted to take it, but honestly, that better idea, it led to a little bit of overconfidence, I'd argue, on the side of NC State. The early hold was working well. Drew was still alive in rafters. You had Taco and Pred both on that lounge support, but it started to collapse with Pred first swinging on the bar double door. Providence dealt with that accordingly. Next was Drew, who successfully evaded the first asphyxiating firebolt, but then made the curious choice to not jump back in the window. I suppose the thought process there was, you know what, maybe I can survive in this corner and I won't get flamed out, and there's a chance that I can catch Purdue off guard. But rather than playing his life, he played a very aggressive and awkward position and found the grave because of a late rotation through the window. Hangman was on the coverage already. Same thing goes for Taco. At that point, it was a 4v2. NCSU were on the back foot. Taco's like, I got one way to pull this back. I got to get aggressive. He did it, and it worked, at least for 1 kill. But then he rotated to Oil Pit, tried to play the vertical angle, a very expected angle. Purdue were ready for it. They shut it down. NCSU's attempt at answering aggression with aggression, that's where things went wrong. But until then, they definitely had a bit of a stronger hold. But unfortunately, at the end of the day, Purdue takes the round and the score line evens out at 5.
Going back to the basement, that was all the way in round 8. We saw the off-site pressure of Taco really help NC State find the victory in that round. And again, he's going to be doing a soft roam, not quite as aggressive as he was last time. That was over in Cash CCTV. And he is going to be way too aggressive. The tables have returned. Taco's off the board. And we're guaranteed to see round 12. And the attacking roster of Purdue, they started off what is looking like the penultimate round in strong fashion. Everybody remaining from NC State is now on their bomb site, but Purdue is still just going to do their due diligence, making sure that there isn't any lurking offsite pressure. They're going to start to establish their flank drones once again to make sure no members of NC State decides to get cute flanking up a stairwell.
Yeah, after that last round of the flanks not working out, I suspect NC State are going to just hope they can hold down this bomb site as long as they can. The remaining 4 defenders, they're just going with this turtle strat. You've got Pred holding down blue behind the generator. The pressure, though, mounting from secret and above in the stock hatch. You've got Laggers, who's now rotating around to mount the pressure from Moto, joined by Hangman here in the bar. And this pressure now could be exactly what Purdue needs. They've got 5 attackers still on the board. They can pressure from multiple angles, and it looks like they're getting a possible church execute going. You also have the Echo in play. NCSU are sticking true to their guns, and that could be exactly what they need to not only shut down the execute, but at least identify where it's coming from. But if they don't figure this out soon, their defenders are going to be in the wrong position, and this execute, which should just roll on through to church, may not be stopped.
Those drones economy that we keep highlighting, well, it's going to be another round of it as they send it down range, but they're going to find themselves in a small roadblock. There are mute jammers in their way, so ADSs are going to have to be burned so a frag grenade can be used. However, that explosive force of the frag grenade will remove another one of those drones. 50% of the drone economy remains. That's actually quite impressive for Purdue. Most rosters maybe have 30% as we enter 30 seconds. 50% is a great step. That means they can confirm just about every single location of NC State and spring into their bomb site. They're opening up holes to give them more avenues into this bomb site. That triple wall is going to be one of those insertion points, but they're going to have to deal with these gunfights. It's going to be do or die as a bomb starts to go down. No Nitrocell available. Drew pushes up, but it's full crossfire for Purdue. Now 1v4. The Echo drone is going to rotate up. It's going to die the plant, but at what cost? NC Jack forced to now go gun up. He's going to, again, try to go for the denial, but no more drunken stuns for him. Taking damage from every possible angle. Purdue will find victory in round 11, and that's going to put themselves to match point.
Well, it certainly is heads-up play from Purdue to quickly deal with that yokai drone, because had the plant once again been stuck and the drone not dealt with, that round could have been won in even an impossible clutch situation just by denying the plant. Unfortunately, though, for NCSU at least, drone was destroyed. Purdue will run away with that round, and, well, now they're on match point. They could jump out to a 2-0 lead in this series very early on if NCSU cannot claw this back and send it to overtime. The almost attacker-sided, well, we are seeing now an attacker-sided clubhouse unfold. NCSU are hoping that this last round they can make that an even 50-50 split on both halves. But the big problem there, I think you highlighted it when we were closing out that round, Chief, was the drone economy for Purdue. 50% of their drones still up on the board with, 30 seconds left in the round? That's excellent for Purdue. And it doesn't usually speak to how well they've been darting their drones around the map. It's just speaking to the fact that NCSU put nothing in the way of dealing with those drones. It costs you almost nothing as a defender to just start yourself on, let's say, the top of the main stairs. If somebody's going to open that jacuzzi wall, you're quick to fall off, but a drone is going to precede the breach and precede the players who are going for that roam clear. There's 1 or 2 drones for free. Same thing goes on the red stairs side. You can grab 1 or 2 drones for free. You continue that pattern. Falling off back to the bomb site, it's very little cost or very little risk from the defense, and I think that previous round of over-aggression, it scared NCSU maybe a little bit too much. They didn't put anything in the way of that extension. As a result, Purdue were able to just roll through, take map control, and they didn't have to use up a lot of their valuable utility or information game to do so.
And before we bury that drone topic, I just want to say, in my notes, I put down that Purdue lost a drone in the prep phase. So that means you go into the round with 90% of your drone economy, only losing another 40. That's quite incredible. Now, going to Purdue's attack on Jim, it was a little bit slow as they were kind of stuck. Like, are we going to push in from cash box at the same time? We're going to be pushing in from spawn at the same time. Now they've realized that they have to do both simultaneously, and it's going to be a two-pronged assault, and they're already starting to open up avenues into cash. And why that's important is you can see Taco's positioning, wielding that Alda. He now has to stand on a box so he doesn't die. It also means you can't frag him out from underneath, but more explosives and more hard breachers can be used on that CC cash wall. The prone angle, he spots the feet, somehow not able to get those kills, and the over-aggressive swing, he knew his life was forfeit. He loses his life to Hangman, and that's Purdue in control this round, and this, again, is their match point.
Yeah, the same situation unfolded on the CCTV and cash side of things on the gym and bedroom defense, but the big difference was the very change that we talked about, Chief, that Purdue needed to change. They opened up the castle barricade immediately, and that did not allow Taco to rotate out, even if he tried. As a result, he's like, you know what? I got to get aggressive. He did it, and it didn't work out. So, no doubt why NCSU are not able to hold down the cash side. It's going to have to come down to their on-site hold instead. Pred, the first player in the way of Mila, who's now going to just click another head, the 9th kill for the Sledge now. And NCSU find themselves on the back foot. A nice nade there from Laggers. It's Drew to get the flank off, but Hangman shuts it down as well. Anarchy needs the ace clutch to pull this one back. He's got the MP7 in hand. He's rocking the classic no-scope, so he's got the chance to do this. There's one headshot. He knows where they're coming from, but just a ruthless crossfire in the objective. Purdue, they roll on through. They take round number 12. They will take 2 maps in a row and now force NC State. If they want this best of 5, a reverse sweep is necessary.
That map was so good. Both these teams are so even. The strategies they're bringing out, the reads of their opponents, it gets better and better. But sadly, there can only be one victor of a map. And today it was Purdue. They were just slightly better. And you can point fingers and say, oh, Goose Smitty, he's just winning the game for Purdue. He's getting in all the gunfights. He's clicking heads. But that's Purdue actually playing together as a team. It's coming down to those nuances. We keep returning to the drone economy because it's so important to the way Purdue is playing. It's the primary, the secondary, even the flex players that are droning in Goose Smitty, who's getting information. Again, obviously Goose Smitty is showing that he can hit aim labs and win gunfights. But again, you as an entry, you want to have information first and then rely on that mechanical skill second.
Well, as you said, Chief, this has been an incredible matchup, nearly going to overtime in both maps. I cannot wait till we see in map 3. Before we get there, though, we are going to send it to a quick break, so stick around. We'll be right back. Well, the story of Clubhouse was just like the first map of Coastline. It was back and forth the entire time, Chief, but it is Purdue who jumps out to a 2-map lead in this series.
Honestly, these teams are so even, and sure, NC State is down in this series, but every one of these games have gone to round 12, and I expect nothing less from Consulate. The one thing, though, is Purdue is so good on Consulate. They've really made this map their own. So what is NC State prepared for? Now, they have a great support staff behind them, CDAPS being the primary coach, and you'll actually be seeing CDAPS in the next series of this game, or this grand finals, semifinals day. And honestly, I couldn't be happier with what we're seeing so far.
I mean, you can see some of these plays here. I mean, there were moments that either team could have pulled out a miracle, or one player was just poised, ready to just shut down the entire attacking push. And often, as we highlighted there, Smitty was that one player on the side of Purdue who was just a constant thorn in the side of NC State. 17 kills on the side of NC State. Taco is the only one who could get 12. So, I mean, really, that is quite a statement on map 2 on Clubhouse, the map that everyone has talked about. Purdue is relatively weak on Clubhouse. At least they used to be. Something that tonight they have at least proved their doubters otherwise. Now, going into Consulate, seeing... Chief, when we were looking at the overall map pool, when we saw Coastline and Consulate on the board, I did say, this is dangerous for NC State. Purdue are wicked strong here, and if NC State want to do well in this series, they need to have prepared those maps, and at the very least, if not, they need to have prepared their own maps. And unfortunately, that's not what we've seen so far for NC State. It's been Purdue, Purdue, Purdue. Even though this has been close, Purdue are the ones at the end of the day who emerge from the map victorious. And if you're looking at the score line, utter dominance is what it looks like from Purdue. Of course, we have not seen utter dominance. It's been back and forth all day long so far. But going into, I'd argue, Purdue's strongest map in the entire map pool, seeing how Coastline unfolded, seeing how Clubhouse unfolded, NC State, they've got their work cut out for them.
But the good thing about this map is sometimes it can devolve into a chaos frag fest, which NC State might be more or less prepared for. But when we start to queue up Consulate, we're going to have to see what is the defense going to be doing. Where are they going to be applying their pressure? For example, let's say you're starting downstairs in the basement. Are you going to be doing an extension into piano as well as in that big bathroom upstairs where you have a shotgun sitting close quarters, standing on the toilet, just trying to be as much of a nuisance as possible? Or are you going to bring out a Mute Mozzie style roam where you expand to that second floor and then work your way back downstairs to that bomb site in stages? Are we going to see a team that is prepped and prepared to bring out a defense of the split bomb site? Because I've become very critical of rosters not setting that up properly. We'll see them have these great strategies where everything works out so well on split until it comes down to the actual construction of the bomb site. I guess I'd say deconstruction of that bomb site, because you have to open up as much of that floor as possible to guarantee that a nitro cell will land on an attacker that is planting in an elevated position.
Well, I love that you brought up the Mute Mozzie, quote-unquote, SSG-style roam, because a lot of people don't know this, but SSG-style roam, that very time-waste Mute Mozzie combo, it was pioneered on this map. Not Clubhouse is where we saw it first. Sure, the official SSG-style roam and the castle, the vigil, that whole thing, that came out on Clubhouse the first time, but bringing out all those operators and utilizing them in such a way to waste so much time off the clock, that was the Consulate strategy from SSG. And seeing how these two teams have played, seeing the methodical nature of both their defenses and attacks, I would not be surprised if we see these teams leaning into that strategy. But as boring as this map, people say this map can be, I'm one of the people who disagrees. There are so many different options for attacking and defending this map. Right? Some people call this map the window repel simulator, because as an attacker, you can just hop on a window, sit there for the entire game, find a couple of frags, and find a round win. But on the same way, you can play this like you would Clubhouse or Oregon. You enter in from admin. You basically could do an admin-sided take for every single objective on this map. And maybe that's something we'll see here from Purdue as they open things off. Our band phase is completed. We know what we're dealing with, or we know what we don't have to deal with, rather. That's the Nomad, the Thatcher, the Maverick, or not the Maverick, the Maestro, and the Mira. So pretty standard bans here. The Nomad is always a must ban for any defensive team, because if this map devolves to the window repel simulator that it often can, at least at the Pro League T1 level, then you need to be able to run out and shut those down.
And I want to see what Anarchy is going to do without his Maestro available to him. He is a Maestro main, and probably some of my favorite clips and highlights from my casting is, well, Anarchy going nuts the Maestro downstairs in basement on Consulate. So I guess he's going to have to find a new weapon to use, and he'll bring out probably the P10 Roni. And honestly, the P10 Roni, not quite having 182 bullets in the magazine, but a 1.5 times sign, an angled grip, and a long barrel can be quite nice. We're talking about denying as many of those drones as possible. Well, there is the strategy right in front of you, Jonah. It's going to be out in full force. You're going to also couple that with that Valkyrie, and it's going to be a recipe for chaos. Most rosters, when we see the Nomad removed, that instantly means you have to have Valkyrie off the board. The reason being is this map can turn into upside down repel simulator, but it can also turn into the defender's fly out window simulator. And let's say you're on that circle balk upstairs, you have a good Valkyrie camera placed out to the south, you can run it on the attackers from, I believe, 10 different windows. Good luck ever stopping that. You bring a Claymore, which we currently don't see at all, it's not going to help you one bit. Now, one thing that I will say, Nomad's off the board. You can use a different operator for untraditional flank watch, which means have a drone set up in that place. You have 0 on the board. So those 4 cameras can act as drones, and that will free up your overall drone economy, which actually should help Purdue, given their credit from our second map.
The 0 is one of those operators that, we talk a lot about as casters and how it's, slowly entering the meta. It's one of those that you don't often see. We haven't even seen pro teams bring out the 0 all that often. And seeing collegiate teams run it, it's interesting, and it often has, we'll say, mixed results. We haven't even seen Mila put down a single one of those 0 cams yet, and I think that's kind of the problem that a lot of collegiate teams have, is using it appropriately and making sure to actually use that utility other than, that secondary hard breach gadget that he brings. Taco has put himself in a very dangerous position, but luckily for him, he may have been misdroned here. Opening up the round, that's Pred, cutting down one, and there goes Taco. The misdrone now confirmed as Providence just walks on into the hallway while reloading, and incidentally, walks on into his 6-foot grave. Pred is now going to make an escape, assisted by his teammate, Drew, opening up the hatch from below him. But in the meantime, Anarchy has found his grave as well, with that kill found by the 0 of Mila. So NCSU, they've got the edge. It's a 4v3 for them, and 60 seconds is all they have to do to defend this bomb site and hold off the mounting Purdue pressure. Finally, the vertical play is beginning as Hangman will enter into Antechamber and into Piano, but you gotta do a bit more than that, boys. You gotta get open that garage wall.
Oh no, there's a member from NC State still upstairs at CEO. How has this not been dealt with? Milo's just going to sprint on by. Taco could take this engagement, but he's still not known. He makes far too much noise there. He should have played that a little bit more passively, utilizing the vertical angles to take that gunfight against Mila, but unfortunately, he will not do so. Now, both rosters forced to fight the remaining 30 seconds with 3 men and women apiece. It's going to be a full send through that triple wall of the garage door. A great setup from NC State. They're using those punch holes as a way to cut off denial and stop any insertion whatsoever. The second round of Toxic Babes goes out. Drew's going to take a lot of damage, but he doesn't know where he's being shot from. Once again, taking damage. An onslaught on the bomb side, but Mila forced to find 2. Dropping the hatch, a brilliant flick, forced to go for the ace, but no, he will not be able to do so. Predator from behind. NC State in a chaotic round will take the first round of Consulate.
Oh, we nearly had our second ace of the series. Mila looking to grab that title, but it would not be the case. NCSU will sneak out of that one with a round, a messy one. Probably the messiest round we've seen so far. A lot of mistakes coming out from both teams. The first one, as we highlighted already, was the misdrone of Taco, playing all the way upstairs in CO office, and there was nothing there to stop him from sitting there for the remainder of the round. Mila as well, a near disaster for the 0, just full running through Hex, running down the yellow stairs. But Taco then made an interesting mistake as a result. Making the noise on the swing, possibly even revealing his position. Mila, despite jumping down the yellow stairs to flee, quickly rotated back, and the element of surprise definitely worked for the now player with 4 kills on the side of Purdue so far. An excellent defense for NCSU. They didn't put a lot of pressure into bathroom. We didn't see that B1 hold that is often so important for your basement defenses, but they seem to do fine without it.
Now, pulse and play, that's an interesting pick to have. Now, no secret, the majority of the floor anti-chamber is all soft, but most rosters on attack are electing to plant in B over by circle, which is a hard concrete floor. Now, you can also use that pulse as kind of just a wandering free camera as he walks throughout the entire basement. You want to confirm that Purdue is pushing in from the east side of the map, which is admin, you can do exactly that. And actually, he's over there right now. He can see that there are 3 members of Purdue over to the east. He's going to be calling that out to his team, and that works all and well, at least if you're not going for a nitrous cell denial, because Purdue, they have to push in, clear out the entire second floor, and then work their way down. Mila has been on quite a hot hand, and it's going to actually continue to get even more hot as we see a failed rotation from Drew, a nitrous cell being lost, and again, when you have that pulse in play, those nitrous cells are going to be so crucial.
Anarchy just was exposed to connector for like an entire hour, but somehow did not get punished by Hangman, who was a little bit too patient on that swing. And as a result, Hangman's going to take a little bit of damage there, and Anarchy is going to emerge barely with his life. Now, attempting the run out, going for the swing, and he will net the kill, but now being shot from elsewhere, stuck outside on the suicide balcony, needs to go for something crazy here. He'll hop up with the pistol, but Providence is there to shut that down. The antics continue in round number 2, but Anarchy will not. It's Taco now, the next player to hold down any sort of vertical control that NC State are looking to maintain with the remainder of this defense on the first floor itself. The vertical control is, very dangerous there as well for Mila, who walks right in front of Taco's crosshair, but again, this is looking up for Purdue. They've got the top floor control, and they've got so much time left on the clock. Mila gonna slap down those 0 cams to get that flank watch going, but Providence is gonna do that manual flank watch, just going for the click head strategy, and that's gonna work onto the head of NC Jack. There goes Pred, cut down by Providence, who's now on a triple kill. Taco going for the top floor retake, but walking into two open arms of the attackers. There goes Smitty. He'll round the corner. He'll cut down Taco, and Purdue will take the round.
That was such a good round by Purdue. They did just about everything right. So textbook. And you can see that NC State realized that they were kind of in this pixel. And as a result, they take gunfights. And Anarchy's run out on that circle balcony was probably my favorite play of this entire series so far, just because it really shows why you keep Nomad in play to stop things like that. Because you might have droned him out a million times. You may have 0 cameras on him. But what are you going to do to stop a balcony run out like that? Other than shooting him? Probably not much of anything. Now, if I have to be critical, NC State, they doubled and tripled down on the information game, which works out well if you're able to use that information for something. When you have that pulse lurking downstairs in the basement saying, hey, there's a bunch of attackers over here. Hey, there's a bunch of attackers on window repels. How are you going to convert that information into kills? And NC State, they never really were able to make that leap. We're going to be seeing CEO come back into play. And honestly, Jonah, I'm not a fan of this bomb site simply because it becomes very difficult to hold successfully. The attackers can push from a plethora of angles. They can use the outside of the map as an asset. Now, the one thing that NC State has going for them with the CEO defense is the fact that you can fly out windows.
Right, they've got that same benefit that comes with the presence of a Valkyrie and the lack of a Nomad, at least through the ban phase, but we're not going to see a Valkyrie on this bomb site, and that makes me think we may see less of the full run out the window type sends coming out from NCSU here. Everyone on the side of NCSU has found a kill, so that is something to be said, but this bomb site choice does spark a little bit of concern. When you understand this map to its fullest, as all Pro League teams do, you no longer ever want to touch this top floor bomb site. Instead, your sites are the garage and cafeteria, lobby and piano or press room, and the split site of archives and tellers. Now, that archives and tellers site, it requires the most coordination of any bomb site you've probably ever seen. However, it is so powerful when done well. And based on the fact that NCSU are going to the window repel simulator bomb site that Meeting and CO is, this is a little bit concerning for their prospects on this map as a whole. They are getting aggressive. They still can have their gun up and still can fight all of these angles here. But, well, that's one way to start, I suppose. Drew is whipping out the C4, and it will connect the Echo Drone assisting that mission. And there goes Smitty. That's your top frag and your 17 kill player from the previous map off the board.
And that's the thing, since Echo Drones can no longer be safe cloaked, if you want to guarantee success with that utility, you play it in an aggressive manner. Not only, having those yellow pings as an asset, but also the fact that you can concussion lock somebody pretty much in the exact same position as your ping, and that's where it becomes quite important. But we're going to have to see how Purdue is able to kind of come back from the ashes. They have a lot of pressure on these windows, and they're still trying to pressure in from the east side of the map. They're going to participate a little bit in that utility consumption simulator, breaking down that on-site pressure. But here comes the important parts this round, opening up this quad wall. This is going to be that crossfire that you have to establish. Far too many defenses are allowed to sit comfortably in a meeting. Hello, says Mila, and she storms into the bomb site, taking duels back and forth. But trains, and the bomb starts to go down for Laggards. Where's the answer back from NC State? Well, it's going to be Anarchy doing exactly that. Nitrocell, Gripped, and Rick force the planter to get off. Laggards takes the gunfight, the prone angle, spotted out. A perfect position for Purdue to be in. Now it's going to be on Drew. He can have the yellow pings all, but will he win that gunfight? He'll be unable to do so. The SMG-11 will finish him off. Purdue, they started the round with a man disadvantage, but it doesn't matter to them. They're the perfect execute on the CEO.
Well played all around. They didn't really need to go into the super window repel game. They simply stormed in from the admin side. They chose their gunfights wisely, took control of Meeting, and took control of the entire floor as a result. Now, the one play that took the round and really sent it in the favor of Purdue was Mila just walking in to Meeting room. That is something that is easily prevented by one player sitting in bathroom. You have a long angle from the soft destruction that we did see NCSU employ on the bathroom wall through the opening in the meeting hall wall straight onto the door on the top of the Visa stairs. There was a smoke grenade thrown down by Laggers to shut off that angle, but it was not on the right mark, and that angle was still exposed. Their coverage should have been there. Mila should not have been allowed to walk in through that door and get that kill onto the only meeting hall player. Because that happened, because Mila was allowed to do that, Purdue had free control and NCSU had no spot to recover from.
We're going to have to see what iteration change we're going to see from both of these teams. We go back downstairs to the basement. The thing was, NC State, they won that, but it was a 1v1, and it was the ace shutdown for Mila, who's been quite good. However, the majority of the kills that they've gotten was from that first round. 4 of those kills and 2 to answer back in the previous 3 rounds. But again, we see a lot of members of Purdue finding the scoreboard, but it's not like it's one-sided as it may seem. It's coming down to how the roster is playing together. Because the amount of kills you get, it doesn't mean anything. It's just the only thing that really means anything is if you actually win the map and the series. Taco's going to find himself in the exact same abode that he was in round 1, hanging out over by CEO. Now, Purdue has learned this lesson, and they know full well that they have to deal with him as well as Anarchy upstairs before they can start that vertical destruction.
Yeah, they're adding, and NCSU are adding that extra element. They're adding Anarchy to this top floor hold, and it's the Mute Mozzie combo. You've put all those Mozzie pests down to help with Taco holding down that position, and that's exactly what their goal will be. Predator's goal, well, that's just going to be accomplished already. There goes Hangman off the board, and already you've lost your Zofia. 0 kills for Hangman, who's been completely shut down on Consulate so far, and well, Smitty will be looking to answer from his fallen teammate. Now working their way up alongside Providence into the Hex. That's going to force Anarchy to fall off as a grenade is going to come raining on through. But where is Taco in this situation? Is Taco still on the top floor? No. Okay, avoiding the onslaught of CO pressure, dropping down the piano hatch, but still in a dangerous position. Soon, this will turn into a crossfire if Purdue know exactly where he's positioned, but it doesn't seem like they do quite yet. Is there a player in press room right now? Yes, there is. Taco, look around. He does, and he gets the kill. What a mess again. Taco is just seemingly invisible to Purdue. Smitty will finally deal with the mute, who's been so elusive so far, but with 1 minute remaining and Purdue lacking in this man count, this is not where they want it to be, and they still have not dealt with Pred, who is also completely undetected.
This might be a blunder for Purdue. They need to deal with this offside pressure. You can't just be sprinting in haphazardly. Where is the clear from Purdue? There was a plethora of information from NC State. They had their Valkyrie cameras just providing everything to be successful. A 2v4 with 35 seconds left on the clock is something that Purdue is capable of winning, but it's going to be quite difficult for them to do so. They're going to have to start to take these gunfights. Lager removed from the field. It's pretty much just lost at this point, but Schmitty finds one, the perfect flick, forced to rotate back up these yellow stairs, is being choked out by one of those toxic babes. There's still one in the back pocket of Drew, which is 10 seconds to denial, and it's going to be a full send in from the west side of the map using the garage doors that were breached earlier, but NC Jack on the elevated position will stop all hopes of that. NC State, a solid round.
It seems that Purdue on their Consulate roam clears. This is not an element I'd even think we'd had to talk about, but it is an element of the game that Purdue are struggling with. Certainly. I mean, that's 2 basement attacks in a row. Well, not, I guess in a row. The first garage attack in round 1, this one in round number 4, that they could not deal with the roamers. They dealt with the top floor. Sure, that's one step, but you still have an entire floor to clear before your focus can shift to the bomb site. But in the case of Purdue here, once they got that top floor control, they assumed, mistakenly so, that NC State would have all rotated back to the bomb site, when in fact it was quite the opposite. You still had 2 extended defenders, one playing in the bathroom here in B1 and one in press room, or piano itself. Taco was able to find another free kill, as was Pred, because even after Purdue dealt with Taco, they, I guess, thought, no chance there's another person hiding out here in the bathroom, but there was. And this bathroom pressure is something that we haven't seen from NCSU at all on these basement defenses, but is something that is so necessary to getting these holds done well. At the highest levels of this game, we will see a full application of utility in B1. You'll put mute jammers, ADSs, a full set of reinforcements, and you'll open that hatch to allow yourself to rotate down on through. While we haven't seen that sort of hold for NC State, for now it doesn't seem to matter. They've done a great job at capitalizing on every small mistake that Purdue have made, and the score is even as a result.
Anarchy is going to attempt what he did last time back in round 2, holding upstairs for as long as possible. He is going to be off that Mozzie back in favor of that Jaeger, and he is going to be just trying to snipe away all those drones that Purdue is going to be sending his direction. He's also going to be this aggressive figure, just taking as many gunfights as possible. But Purdue, it's also multi-pronged assault from them. They're putting a lot of their troops over to the east, but a small amount of their troops over to the west side of the map. Again, you want to call this map upside down window repel simulator? Well, Purdue is going to start to do something very similar to that. However, NC State seems to have learned their lesson, and they're not going to take any of those gunfights. Instead, they're going to go for the fly out approach, running out from the bottom of those yellow stairs. Mila forced to get off rappel, and that means the members of NCSU upstairs have a little bit more freedom to move.
Well, Drew is still hanging out in Tellers, and Anarchy on the top of the basement stairs here. You got Pred on the support, the Pulse playing all the way over in Archives right now. And This is an interesting position for a Pulse because you're limiting your information on this west side. You have no idea what's happening outside Piano. You don't know who's on that rappel. You don't know who's coming in from CO, and that is where the pressure is mounting. You've got Providence and Smitty pressuring above in CO office, looking to get the vertical play started. At the same time, you've got Hangman pressuring from the lobby double door. That's going to be the Malusi Banshee dealt with, and now the vertical play is beginning from Purdue. They've shifted their focus over from Piano now to the main lobby plant. Getting the diffuser down here is a free round if you can get this plant accomplished, and every second this round transpires, it's looking more and more certain. Hangman is going to find another kill, this one onto Anarchy, and now NCSU, they're on the back foot, and there's no denial for this plant. NC Jack is going to throw down a Toxic Babe. It's going to miss its mark. Hangman and Mila just light up the scoreboard, and now the diffuser is on the ground. Regardless of how these next few engagement goes, how are they going to get this diffuse off? They're going to have to challenge the players outside, so they need a miracle to make this happen. Pred will find one, and the miracle begins. Taco looks for the second, but Hangman says no. Now that's a triple kill. Pred, nearly a headshot onto Hangman, but now retreats, holding down yellow stairs, but the time is simply just ticking away. No HP to work with, nothing to work with other than just the balls of steel, and he'll swing out and eventually get taken down by Smitty. So Purdue will take the round.
I was so eager to see outside in the grapes. That's how you defend this bomb site. When you put the bomb down, the attackers evolve into the defenders, but I never got the opportunity to say that because Purdue had a different style of play when they elect their post play. It was actually probably better coverage than the outside in the grape strategy because it was full 360 coverage. It was actually more like a sphere of coverage because you had the vertical play, you had the Zulu play, you had the grapes play, and you could have swung in from just about every available angle. And even when NC State starts that retake, they win some gunfights and great gunplay by them, but it wasn't enough. The reason being is Purdue can throw bodies at the problem. Again, that sphere of influence they have, all of those crossfires that they're applying, you might win one gunfight, but you as the attackers are guaranteed to get that refrag. Back upstairs to see, that's going to be the final round for NC State, at least on defense. And again, Jonah, returning to the point I made in round 3, I do not like this bomb site. It becomes just far too difficult to defend because you don't have any comfortable positions to sit in. I'd prefer to see the split bomb site, but NC State, they have seen something that is going to allow them to hopefully be able to win a defending round here in round 6.
Well, here's what I got my eye on this time, Chief. I'm looking at this meeting room setup, and I'm looking at the bathroom player, or what should eventually be a bathroom player. Take a look at this line of sight. You sit right in front of that soft destruction on the other side of the wall that Pred is taking up. You look down your sight, you can see straight on through to the visor door. We have the best observer in the entire world who just showed you that beautifully. Shout out to Cyano there. But, like, that right there is an angle that you need to hold as a defender when you know the attackers are pushing in from the admin side. When that admin take is going, you need to put someone in bathroom, sit them there, just stare at the doorway for the entire round. I know it sounds silly, but it is so important to hold off that position because if not, your player just sitting in what we call Bosco spot behind the deployable shield over there in meeting room, they will not be able to survive for very long.
Anarchy. He's going to live up to his name, trying to be as much of a pain as possible. He finds himself in the east window, so aggressive, yet able to rotate deeper back into admin. Nobody for Purdue can isolate him. He's going to take 1 or 2 bullets to the dome, but he's still alive and active. Just sniping away drone economy one by one. Drew's going to find the opening duel, but Anarchy, the man of chaos, is a reason why he has that symbol on his gun, is just able to win these duels. The pressure from Purdue not working out, eventually being felt off by Providence, but man, chaos. And there's no way that Purdue should have been able to lose those duels, but it was almost like they got too tunnel vision on this Claire. Lost them 2 of their attackers, but are more than capable of coming back from this.
Now, in my experience, Chief, chaos, it generally defends or supports the defensive team, right? Because as a defender, it doesn't matter how much chaos unfolds at one time or another. At the end of the day, you can just play the clock out. You can run back to the bomb site and just sit behind a corner. That's exactly what Providence is now struggling to deal with because NC Jack is here in this position. Now, wow, he's going to attempt the swing. He whips out the M590 and just rounds the corner and just sends Providence tumbling down the staircase. But now, I guess Purdue, they're just going to full send this on in. Hangman found a kill and now popped NC Jack's shield, who's now going to whip out the shotgun again, go for the challenge, and he'll get the down. That's a double kill. Mila quick to respond, but it's a 2v1 with NCSU in the advantage. Drew now tucked around the corner in connector. Mila looking for the pre-fire, but can't quite find it because Drew is proving to be elusive. You've got the Valk cams to support. You've got possibly a Mozzie drone to support, and Taco playing below the vertical angle through the meeting hatch. That is going to mark the end of Mila's life, and NCSU will recover the half, the even 3-3 split.
And why CEO has become just so darn attacker-sided is the ability for the attackers to say, you know what, I've decided that I don't want to push in from admin office anymore. I'm going to change up my push entirely and push in from CEO. Now, the one wrinkle in that strategy is the fact that you can't stop runouts because Nomad is banned. But again, it's kind of on your IGL to say, wow, there is a huge mountain in front of us. I can call in a bulldozer to bury this mountain, but at what cost? I might lose a few bulldozers in this process. And that's exactly what Purdue did. They said, all right, we're just going to keep throwing bulldozers at our problem. And sadly, they have to call in the handyman because too many of them are broken. But again, IGLs are always going to be tested on maps like Consulate because you have the option of making rotations. And to me, when I try to find what makes a good IGL, it's an IGL that reads the problem in front of them like a math problem, like you're doing algebra, and is able to solve in for X.
Well, everything we've learned so far in this map, and as chaotic as it's been, I suppose those lessons can really be thrown out the window, at least a large part of them, because we're on the second half. It's Purdue taking up the reins of the defense, and NCSU, they are the ones who have to work through the chaos of their own on the attacking side to get these round wins. Now, sitting at a 3-3 split, it's not too unexpected for Consulate. This map is one of those that has been seeing those more 3-3 splits in recent history, but the game itself, it's a defensive-sided game, right? It's Siege. You can just sit behind a corner and wait for your attackers, and so coming out with only 3 rounds, I think NCSU, they have their work cut out for them here, just how strong Purdue have been playing and how much of, this is no doubt their home territory. NCSU, they need to chain together some early strong performances and establish this momentum. The first part of this attack, it's going to be clearing out a pretty heavy hold of this top floor. Rather than simply putting a roamer on this top floor like NCSU, Purdue have allocated quite a bit of utility, including reinforcements, to this meeting position. You've got Providence holding down in meeting, and look at this angle from Hangman, extending all the way from the yellow stairs through a couple of destruction there, and he's gonna miss the coverage. He just got his teammate killed, unfortunately, but he'll answer it back, and not the end of the world, trading that one out onto his teammate. So it's okay for Purdue, but again, the kills are going to go back and forth here. Pred will be able to find Smitty, but not before Smitty took down another NCSU attacker. Now it's Mila who lights up the scoreboard. So many early scuffles on this top floor before NCSU have basically entered into the building. Purdue with the upper hand. They're starting to retreat back to the bomb site. A perfect decision, if you ask me.
I was waiting to see these aggressive smokes that Purdue loves to bring out, because everyone thinks about putting smoke downstairs in your bomb site. He's going to waste 30 seconds there. However, remember, smoke, 30 seconds of time wasting. What happens if you're to waste time on the other side of the map? Because if you slow the attackers down on their insertion point, that's not going to be 30 seconds being wasted. That's going to be converted into 45 or even maybe more, because about the utility usage you have to, well, expend to be successful dealing with an aggressive smoke play. It never really worked out in Purdue's favor, but they do have the man advantage. They're continuously removing drones, and they also have the vertical play. If you want to push in through that garage door, you're going to have to clear out Piano. NC Jack knows this too well, and he's going to be calling in for some additional help. Anarchy forced to now retake and clear out Hangman. It's going to be a duel to the death with sub 30 seconds.
Oh, despite Mila cutting down to 1 HP, finding the kill onto NC Jack anyway, it's Anarchy in the middle of the bomb site, hoping to pull it off. But Hangman is not having any of it. Round number 7 falls to Purdue, and that simply came down to Purdue just having a better overall strategy and playing it well. They had a perfect top floor hold, seemingly unfallible at its very infancy. And NCSU, they just could not get a hold of that top floor, and they couldn't get a hold of the bomb site either. That was just well played from Purdue all around. Even though NCSU were able to play the trade game pretty well, and Purdue were able to do it as well, the end of the day, it was a 3v2, Purdue with the advantage, and they did what every single smart team does in that situation. They decide to stop swinging the angles, they play it more passively, and they just position for the plant or for the eventual execute. And like you highlighted, Chief, the player in Piano, it made that execute pretty much impossible.
So everything you just said, Jonah, you can apply this to the bomb site that we're currently going to. It's press room lobby. And sure, you're not downstairs in the basement, but you're on that first floor. So you apply pretty much the exact same philosophy. You put murder holes in all of upstairs bathroom. You do the exact same in press or into meeting room, whatever you want to refer to that little disco box as the projector room, and you just isolate the attacking members of NC State as they try to go for their clear of the East. And again, this is the opportunity for NC State to learn what made Purdue so good on their press room executes. It was their ability to challenge from multiple angles, not just putting all of their eggs in the East admin basket, but you apply them also over to the West. So that way, when Purdue does this full extension upstairs, holding these deep angles, at least you're trying to apply a different line vector and a different angle and a different threat.
This top floor hold from Purdue is taking a very similar shape. Once again, you've got Providence, your smoke, responsible for holding down meeting. You've got the soft destruction on the meeting wall. You've got the ADSs to support him. And you've got the player over on that bathroom side. Could be Smitty, but for now, it is Mila holding this one down. And Smitty is just going to resign to holding console office as well. It all comes down to this vertical hold at the end of the day. There's very little as an attacking team you can do to completely circumvent it. Even if you run straight on into lobby or straight on in through Piano, if you jump on in the windows, at some point, the defenders are going to use that vertical hold against you. And it seems that the aggression is coming out from Hangman this time. Not even bothering to go for the vertical hold, playing downstairs in the basement and cutting down Taco, who, for some reason, unbeknownst to us, didn't get the drone work good enough, had no idea that Hangman was lurking around.
I think he died to the famous "why are you there" spot. It looked like, again, Taco's death icon was on the yellow stairs. So my guess was Hangman was hanging out over by the van, holding the angle into the rotation of the yellow stairs. And how often do I see a Twitter clip where somebody is raging, why is he there? You're upstairs. It's an upstairs defense. You have to be, well, keep in mind, if you push in through a door frame, it is on you to coordinate with your team to say, hey, we should just drone this out to make sure that there's nobody lurking in a position. And honestly, if you die to that, that means it's your fault for not communicating. Nonetheless, though, it's a full send to the bomb site for NCSU. They're trying to go for their full and swift execute, but it doesn't work out at all for them. Members of their roster fell very swiftly, but Predator's able to get that refrag. A 2v4 with sub 60 seconds, now all on the lone hard breacher of NC Jack. Isolated over by Zulu. He's going to give away his position by going for that breach, but he takes the duel and able to win it. Unable to take the second one, though. Purdue takes round 8.
I'm a bit worried here, Chief, for NCSU. These attacks are looking rather rough, and even the smaller decisions that they're making, they're not instilling a lot of confidence in their attack, and I'm really not certain about these last few rounds here. I mean, we just saw Anarchy, I believe, push in with a diffuser in hand, running straight on up to the bathroom, only to get slammed by laggers. And that is not the play. Maybe he didn't realize he had the diffuser in his hand. Maybe he was just hoping to get a random plant down. But that kind of decision making, it certainly doesn't mean the end of this team, but those small things, it does show that there's very possibly slowly a breakdown of communication, that this team is becoming less confident in their ability to bring this series back. And when you're down 2-0, not only 2 rounds in this map, but 2-0 in the series overall, a reverse sweep necessary, your mental game is as important as ever. This is where you're going to be tested as a team, and for young collegiate players, this can be very difficult, you know? All of these players, they've got ample comp experience, but no matter how many hours you put into this game, staring down the end of a potential loss, the end of your tournament run, your mental game is going to be chalked, and you need to be as diligent as ever in every little decision you make. And by the fact that Taco ran into the basement without droning and died, and the fact that Anarchy, or whoever had the diffuser in hand, ran up to the bathroom and just got immediately slammed by the Echo, these 2 things are just part of the problem for NCSU. And we're going to need to see them remedy that right away, because staring down 6-3, that is not a formula for success.
Uh-oh. I don't like the defense from Purdue one bit. I like Split. Split's always a great bomb site, but they didn't remodel that floor. If the attackers vault on the concrete wall, on the table, the soft little table to the southwest, which actually can be destroyed, or the 2 hard tables, how are you going to stop that? Are you going to lob a nitrocell up? Well, they're going to land on the underside of the table and not kill the attacker planting. You have to set up small little holes in the floor. Not too big so the attackers don't shoot you, but just big enough for that nitrocell to glide perfectly in the air, land on that table, and remove the pressure of the attackers playing. Now, some people will argue that, well, you don't make any holes in the floor, so Buck, doing this currently, won't find those kills. But it doesn't really matter when you have Providence lining up his nitrocell perfectly. Taco has been a brilliant player so far in this series. He's gone a little bit quiet in map 3, and now he's relegated to nothing but flank watch duty.
So much of this round is unfolding on the top floor, and that is not what NCSU are looking for. Here comes Providence just going for the top floor retake, kind of all alone here, so very dangerous position, especially as Pred gets another kill. But here comes Providence. There's one, nearly the second, but can't quite land the headshot onto the Buck, and Providence will escape with only 1 HP. Anarchy's going to capitalize on the lack of site pressure. That kill onto Hangman means that this one is all of a sudden pretty even in a 3v3. Providence and Pred are both pretty much one shot, and it's going to come up to NC Jack to get this plant down. Mila, heartbeat sensor should know where the plant is going down, but no. Okay, the pings are there. Here comes that diffuser. A quad kill now for Providence off screen, and Pred has to pull this one back. Swinging the angle, but just the wrong moment, and Providence gets the ace. Purdue, on the shoulders of Providence, take round 9, and they are looking as good as ever to take this series.
And that put them to 6 points in this map of 3. That means this is match point, series point, semifinals point for NC State. Their room for error has now been lost. If they want to be successful, if they want to find themselves in the grand finals and a potential place where they can take that 10K prize pool home in their back pocket, they have to take us to round 12. They have to take us to overtime and win, and then proceed to win the remaining 2 rounds. That is quite a tall order for NC State. But honestly, if any of the 4 rosters that are here participating in these semifinals are more than capable of doing that, I have the utmost faith that NC State is capable of bringing it back. Now, the pressure relies on their shoulders. Do they themselves believe that they're capable of coming back? We're going to have to see how the next 3 rounds start to pan out. Purdue going back downstairs to the basement. No surprise at a strong defense here. But what has NC State seen? How are they going to break down this defense?
Well, Chief, you and I have casted quite a bit of Collegiate at this point, and one of the teams I think we've seen the most of has been Oklahoma State. And the reason I bring them up is because we have talked to their captain Slash countless times in the interview room, and he said that they have come back from incredible deficits, and their mentality approaching each round is one round at a time. They don't think about the overall score line. They do their best not to think about how the series is unfolding. It is one round at a time mentality. And NCSU, having beaten Oklahoma State last week, or 2 weeks ago, they are certainly going to need to channel that very energy. 3 rounds down, with their last 3 attacks looking very bleak. This is where it has to change. It seems that they've got a pretty clear plan what they want to do. They're going for that full rush. Laggers is there to deny it. He'll get one. Anarchy gets to trade this one on to Hangman, but Drew is in the middle of the bomb site all alone. So dangerous as Laggers makes that certain. The head of Drew is cut down. Pred is on the floor as Mila gets that kill. NC Jack is there to recover, so it's a 2v2, but now it is going to have to be NC Jack to win this out with their tournament lives in the balance. Mila lining it up. The last 2 kills for the incredible gunner of this series, and Purdue will win it out here, taking a dominant 3-0 map victory in this best of 5.
That was such an interesting read by NC State, but I don't necessarily hate it because they realized that they had to do something different. They realized that clearing the entire top floor hurt them so badly, they need to bring out something different. They knew the pressure was still upstairs, so you know what? We're going to commit to the rush. However, the one thing I'm going to be critical of NC State was actually not committing to the rush enough. They only put 2 of their roster members to fly through that breach. Imagine if they double, triple down, brought out a Ying, maybe a Glass, had some fun with it. Again, their backs are against the wall. You have to do something different. That rush was something different. It nearly worked for them. It was a close round, but sometimes things just don't go your way. But we have guaranteed ourselves one of the rosters that are participating in our grand final today. And honestly, Jonah, I'm stoked what this first semifinal brought. It was beyond expectations. Brilliance from both counts. Purdue, NC State. They showed that they're good teams. And unfortunately, NC State, they're now going to have to bow out.
They will walk away with that 4th place or 4th place prize pool, which will be a nice $2,500. So their season has not been for nothing, at least. But they definitely were looking to close this series out, but Purdue, it was Purdue the whole way. They deserved this spot, and I cannot wait to see what they're going to bring out in our grand final. We've got to decide who Purdue is going to face in that grand final, and that's exactly what we're going to see up next. We've got Akron, the East Conference champions, taking on the West Conference champions, GCU, in a grudge rematch that should be very impressive to watch. Chief and I are going to say goodbye, at least for now, and pass things off to Caliber, Jacob, and CDAPS, who are going to walk you through that incredible second best of 5 of the day. So we'll see you in just a moment.